Hello and welcome to the 4Corners podcast. I'm Brad, joined as always by Matt and Shad. Gentlemen, how are we doing this evening?
Oh, I'm doing all
Uh,
right.
yeah, doing okay. I'm surviving so
Yeah.
far.
So
Better if I pull my microphone over, but you know.
we had so much fun watching Barry Windham matches, we decided to go for a second round. Mostly because I found the worldwide match, because I smartened up and realized I probably could find the worldwide episode with them on it. So we're
Yeah.
doing that, a match with Bobby Fulton, and then a match where Luger and Wyndham challenge Arn and Tully for the tag titles. But first, we have a couple of side topics that actually kind of sprung up in our chat today. And the first one is I'm going to call it the Ric Flair conundrum. And this is something that Shad actually mentioned in our chat today, and I kind of wanted to talk about. And I believe Shad's wording was, I think I have a hard time appreciating Ric Flair because I just expect it to be good.
I have seen so much good wrestling from Ric Flair with so many different people for so long that when there's a Ric Flair match, I sit back and this is great. And then I want to look at my phone or something because it's not that I don't care. I know full well how good it is. But it's one of those things like, oh, this is fantastic. And then you're like, oh, it's great. And you go, you're just so used to it that you're like, oh, this is fan. And then you go like, of course it's great. It's a classic era Ric Flair match. And it makes it kind of hard for me to stay tuned in, if that makes sense.
I think like you kind of just so like the one match tonight, like it ends and he's not even like winded. And I mean, I was thinking a little more about the Flair stuff, like, oh yeah, of course he's not winded. Like I've seen this a million times. Like I don't even appreciate the fact that like it's nothing to him, or all the small like little details that he does as a worker, where it's just like you just kind of take it for granted.
It's difficult because he just does so much good. He does so much stuff that's so good, and there have been a lot of people who, oh, Ric Flair always has the same match. It's like, no, you watch it. What happened through a lot of like modern day WWE stuff is that we had the formula build, right? Like, oh, this is what he always does at the beginning of the match. Okay, this is what he always does. At the minute, like what their spots are. You see them wrestle the same match so regularly that you know what the beats are, and then you go, well, now what? And the answer to well, now what is? It seems like someone's having the same match all the time.
Well, I think
they're not.
I think the way fandom has evolved, I don't know how to say this in a nice way or not to sound kind of offensive, but like there's a very strong like autistic fan base now that I think has developed over the years and has kind of become a more dominant factor. And I think along with that, like it's become very formulaic because people kind of want say the line Bart because they want kind of the comfort of sameness now. So I think everyone has kind of pigeonholed into a formula, especially in WWE, but like on the indies, because you go and you want to see them play the hits. You don't want the new album.
Yeah, you want to see the stuff you recognize because you get the dopamine hit for it.
It's not like when you go to like, I've been at these shows before where you go and see like an 80s band today and they're like, this is off our new album. And you just hear the crowd go, oh.
Yeah.
Well, so I took my wife twice because I love my wife very much. I took her to Garth Brooks' most recent tour. Not his last tour because who knows when his final tour is going to be. But I took her to his most recent tour, and he even said, he goes, nope, what everybody wants to hear is the classic stuff, so that's what we're going to play tonight. And I was like, I mean, the man knows what he's talking about, but like I liked some of the songs off like the Scarecrow album and stuff like that. What could I have one of those? No, can't do that.
That's one thing, even though Gene Simmons is a douche, That's one thing that Kiss has always been adamant about, and I just listened to a Paul Stanley interview, and he said repeatedly, like, people paid money for our show, and they deserve our A game every night. Like, if we hate each other, they don't care. Like, we don't want to be those bands we saw that we paid for when we were teenagers that dogged it, and Kiss has always been adamant, like, you're gonna get your money's worth out of us.
They do a really good show. From what I've seen, I haven't been to a Kiss concert, but from what I've seen, I mean, they do a good job. They've got the hits people love, and so you're going to hear Detroit Rock City. You're going to hear Rock and Roll All Night. You're going to hear Strutter. You're going to hear you're going to hear that stuff.
Yeah,
and of course you are, because
I might go to the no, guys. We're really, 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 really serious this time. This is the last tour.
Mm-hmm.
Pinky swear, right?
How old is Gene Simmons?
They're in their 70s. They got to be, because I just listened to an interview and Stanley was talking about he was a cab driver before he made it, and was talking about in 71 or 72 seeing Elvis headlining an MSG show and how he wanted to be famous enough to headline an MSG show.
Gene Simmons is 75.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's...
I mean, they started in 74, I think.
That's true.
73.
So when they started?
Yeah. Look, it's saying that they were active from 1973 to 2023.
Well, they were...
So 50 years.
So I just listen. I don't know why I listened to this interview, but so it might not be that Kiss started in 73 because Gene and Paul were in had a record deal with a different band that they were like, oh, this sucks. So they moved over to Kiss after that. So the other, I don't remember what the first band was called, but that's 73.
Wicked Lester.
Yeah, Wicked Lester. That's it. So they were.
That's such a 70s name.
That is such a 70s name.
Well,
that's hilarious.
So it kind of reminds me. There's there is a YouTube guy I like named Todd in the Shadows who did which episode when he does One Hit Wonderland, and he did his episode on Mr. Big, and then he goes through a list of all of these 80s hair metal band names, and he gets to the point of it. He goes. Finally, he gets to a particular point and he goes, I swear, I had to make some of these up, right? Faster Pussycat, Cats in Boots. I can't even remember all of them, but it was these wild names. And I'm like, what are we doing here?
There's nothing quite like a stereotypical 80s hair band, though.
You know what? If I went looking for it, I could find the whole thing. But consider all of the names, right? I'm vapor locking.
If you think about it, though, if we were to start listing off a bunch of 90s grunge and bands, you would know oh yeah, that just drips 90s.
Oh yeah, Silverchair and
Wallflowers.
Oh, if we're just going with 90s adult alternative, the Wallflowers, Fastball, Sixpence None the Richer, Eagle Eye Cherry, Train is still around. How is Train still around? Can someone tell me?
Train kind of came right at the tail of the 90s, I think.
Yeah, but how are they still around?
Because they fill a void. The problem is you can go forever now, because Stryper still puts out an album every 2 years. So I think as long as you have enough of even Alice Cooper puts stuff out still. If you have enough of a fan base, they'll buy it. And I think especially for Train, there's really not many people that do their deal that have survived.
I guess I'm looking it up. They're styled as pop rock. They seem more almost adult contemporary. Now it's
yeah.
But they they have like 3 or 4 songs that you always hear. Like you can probably not go a week without hearing it somewhere on the radio. They'll be playing it on the like over the speaker of like a Starbucks or the mall or something. Like you
Yeah.
can't escape them. So it's
I
like
I hate those damn songs too.
Well,
Because it's like, oh, Meet Virginia, Tears of Jupiter,
Meet Virginia is
Drive By.
not a bad song, but
no,
I don't.
that's probably their best song, I think.
I think it's a fine song. I've enjoyed it, but I also can be like, if I hear it once, it's like I'm good for 6 months to a year, easy. Like that's just once. It's not a multiple repeat to me, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think the issue is like the music industry ruined itself, and now that like late 70s to early like aughts is more marketable than current music, so that's why you hear it so much. It's like American Top 40 in your market, you can probably more easily find reruns of Casey Kasem on your radio stations than you can find like the current American Top 40 because it's more marketable.
A little dog named Snuggles.
Casey Kasem and Delilah are going to show up on your radio.
Oh.
Delilah's
still ongoing, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I was just at a Graders and I heard her and I'm like, I can't believe she's still on because
He only does like what?
no,
3 minutes of content every hour?
but she's still
aware-
on.
I'm aware of her. I never listened to her. And it was years and years ago that I was dating. Like I don't even think we're married at that point. But my wife, we were dating. We're boyfriend girlfriend. And I think we were driving maybe we were like back when she was in Texas. We were back in Texas together. I don't remember where. We were not local. We were somewhere.
Yeah.
And like I don't know, for some reason we had like the radio on, and she's like flipping through the channels, and it's like, oh, Delilah, and I'm like, who's Delilah? And she had to explain, you never heard of Delilah? I'm like, no, I've never heard of Delilah. Like I don't. This is not what I listen to. I listen to the music, the radio, and I have what I would describe as like really eclectic music taste because
Yeah.
I mean I don't really like a lot of like. I don't like rap really. Some hip hop,
Yeah.
okay. I'm more like an R&B if I'm gonna do that.
Mhm.
But I'll like some country. I'll like some like electronic music. I'll like rock. I'll like heavy metal. I'm an unabashed like pop music fan. Like I like it a bunch, but I'm just not into stuff like Delilah. Like never have.
Well,
never have been.
okay, so there is a Maria Bamford bit about Delilah that leaves me absolutely, utterly in tears. This is Delilah. Who is this calling you? This is Sue from Sioux Falls. Who would have guessed? What's going on? Oh, this is going out to your ex. Here is Hey There Delilah. There we go. And
She did a segment on one of those I Love the shows. But I remember
oh yeah.
I remember in high school I would hear her every now and then. She used to be on like I think she's on like I don't know, like 7 to 10 or something like that. She's on in like the evening.
The last time I heard her, oddly enough, I was driving home after a wrestling show, and I've got the radio on scan, so it's different to keep me awake. And and this is Delilah. Hope you stay with us. And I was like, who's this phone sex operator on the radio?
I just heard her. It was literally last month. I was like, oh, I can't believe she's still on. But I didn't realize
Yeah.
because I looked it up afterwards, and she didn't start till like 95. So it's not like she's one of those people that like have been on since like the 60s. Because there are some. I don't know. I think my market has finally like gotten a little younger, but there are some absolute fossils. Like there, like the main morning show here. Like someone had it on like a couple years ago, and I don't think they grew up here, but they were doing something. I'm like, oh my God, they were doing that when I was in high school, like 20 years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. We're gonna do War of the Roses coming up next. It's like,
Yeah.
oh my
God,
God.
no.
And,
No, don't do that. No. Don't, please don't do that.
So a couple years back, my wife and I bought a new car.
Uh-huh.
Like sold the car we had to CarMax, bought a new car because we needed an SUV. Now when we had 2 kids, like now you need, when the SUV we bought, it's almost like we need even a bigger SUV because you never have enough space. But anyway, um, so it came like with this I think it was like a year-long subscription to Sirius XM radio, and then once like the year like ran out, I never listened to it really.
Mm-hmm.
So I like just let it lapse, and my wife got like so upset with me. It's like, why'd you let the car like radio lapse? I'm like, I never listened to it. Like she's like, I listened to it. Like you need to turn it, like please, like sign it back up again. I'm like, okay. Like so I signed it back up, and so randomly like I have like occasionally like turned on like the main like pops like the main station on
Yeah.
Sirius XM and their morning show. Brad, it is like it's the worst. It's like literally every stereotype of a god awful like morning show wrapped into one. And I feel it's even like they even have a couple people. I think this is real inside baseball. Brad would know it. But do you remember like the guy that did a podcast or a show with Opie from Opie and Anthony? Like when he was, it's like a African American dude. I don't know I forget his name.
Oh,
but like
I think I know who you're talking about. Yeah, I can't think of
is his name Chuck or something like that?
maybe.
I don't know, but he's like on it, and I'm like, it's so like it's giving like the sanitized like comedy like jokes and everything like that, and it's so cringe. I'm like, look, just play some Sabrina Carpenter, okay?
If you want
like,
if you want to see how
banter,
if you want to see how bad
I want to hear
is,
espresso.
if you want to see how bad it is, because I have it just because because sometimes I go on long car trips and it's nice to have like consistent radio the whole way. But the 80s station has like Rick Springfield and like the MTV VJs from like the 80s.
Mm.
Like it's real. It's
They
real
have-
not good.
Did they get like
God.
90? Did dig up like 90-year-old Kurt Loder to?
No, it's like it's like Nina Blackwood, who barely has a voice because she smokes so much, and then I don't remember Alan Hunter,
Mm.
and I don't remember who the other one is. I think that those are the two I know off the top of my head. But it's real sad. I miss like when radio was decent.
Different.
Yeah.
That's the thing that bothers me with, like, it feels like there's so much stuff that's on the radio now that is made by algorithm.
Well, it is. It's all owned by Clear Channel now, or iHeart. So it's all the same homogenized. They come in like go around the dial on your thing. You're gonna have like 5 stations that are playing almost the exact same mix of like 70s and 80s with a bit of 90s thrown in. So a really dumbed down playlist of like 60 songs. Like it's really pathetic. I just miss like, when you would just wander around, you'd find crazy stuff. Like that's how I found Opie and Anthony, was just they came into our market and I just stumbled across them, or finally getting to hear Ron and Fez and like the crazy stuff they would do. I just miss that stuff.
We everything wanting to be mass market and reuse and that sort of stuff. I know it happened. The only one that I know much in the way of details of it happened because I would, as I got older, I was like, why does contemporary Christian radio suck? And then I went looking for it, and I'm like, oh, now I know why it sucks. Okay. And because at the time it was so bad, like I wasn't listening to it with a critical ear. I was just like, why is this awful? Why is this terrible? Tell me why. What can someone explain why this is terrible? And then I went looking into it. I'm like, oh my god, they have. The way I heard a music critic describe Hootie and the Blowfish is it was music that everybody kind of liked, but was nobody's favorite. So it was. It's fine. It's good enough. You sell a lot of albums that way, but then it doesn't stand out. Right, like it doesn't make it anything different or...
I actually know a lot about it because I have a relative that was involved in the business, and actually, a lot of why it sucks now is because that's what's commercially viable. Like the current stuff is aimed at like kind of the soccer mom crowd, but they went down that path because, truthfully, going down that path like got them way more popular and relevant. like
Yeah.
going down that path. So I mean, like I don't. That's. I mean, it kind of sucks, but like that's how you succeed
Yeah.
now is bland.
Yeah.
I haven't messed with sports, and honestly, like I used to like sports talk radio, but gambling fucking ruined
Oh.
sports talk
Draft
completely.
brought to you by DraftKings.
Well, no, they're like
That's
talking
it.
about
Oh.
like betting lines and stuff. It's like I don't give a shit. Like just
Yeah.
like talk about something else.
It's going to be up against the spread. What's the point spread? Have you got that spread?
And I
Yeah.
mean, not to get like political or on my high horse, but like it pisses me off that like especially here like they've legalized like sports books and stuff, and it's like you've legalized one of the most destructive vices for like a couple of tax bucks on the backs, because it's like all this you'll get these ads and they're obnoxious ads, and then like at the end it's like a gambling's bad, okay,
Yeah.
in like the smallest print possible. It's just it aggravates me so much, and it's ruined sports. That's the other thing, because it's like, especially stuff like the NBA, and like something wonky happens, it's like you wonder why your ratings are in the trash because you're heavily advertising gambling, and when like a call gets botched, you don't think people are going to start thinking it's rigged. Like there's a real optics problem there.
Yeah. Yeah, there is. And I just I have to be on, like, tinfoil hat goes on sometimes at some of the calls that I see made. Like, I'm trying to watch SEC basketball, and some of the the calls are so consistently egregiously bad. I'm like, how does one of the power conferences in college basketball suck this much?
I mean, they all, like, even in football, the conferences have terrible.
Yeah, so it's like, but I'm watching this and I'm like, okay, I'm watching the UK game, and Owe was it Owe? No, it was Brea. Brea has the ball, goes in. He goes to spin around the defender to do a layup. This was against Auburn. I mean, UK got destroyed by Auburn. There's no question about that. But here he is, dude goes in. He goes to spin around the Auburn defender. Another Auburn player reaches in and damn near like booger hooks him, right? Like reaches in and like hooks the arm, and it causes him to stumble and fall. And instead of calling the foul, they called traveling on Kobe Brea. And I'm like, what? What are you guys watching? What are you paying attention to?
Interesting side topic, because I actually looked into refereeing at one point. So it kind of works a lot like pro wrestling, in that if you're going to become like, say, an NBA or an NFL referee, you have to start at the bottom. Like you start in high school and then you move up as you get better. So a lot of times the lower down you go, the crappier the refs get, because they're less experienced, less talented. And if you get good ones, they get plucked to a cushier job somewhere else.
Well, and the bad ones don't get removed. So, like, I know that the Major League Baseball refs, like, that's a running joke at this point. The MLB refs, because, I mean, it was a matter of court record that one of them was like, no, you suck at your job. That's why you didn't get to work in the World Series.
Baseball's actually not terrible. Like, CB Buckner and Angel Hernandez are fucking terrible, but baseball's pretty not terrible a lot of times. And I think they've done more to like control balls and strikes and stuff.
Well, they've added the stuff. They've put on the pitch clock and things like that. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm down for that, because
they've actually benefited a lot in the ratings because of that. Like their ratings have gone up because I think the games are shorter than like the NFL now, and I think they're closer to like standard because they've done a lot to speed it up.
Well, I know that the NCAA, they want to block out 2 hours for every NCAA college basketball game, and it's like, you know damn well that the NCAA basketball games ain't gonna run no 2 hours, but that's what they do every time. Why? Because we got to maximize those commercial profits.
That's why that's why soccer is awesome, because what happens in soccer is, so your halves are like 45 minutes. The clock just
Hmm.
runs. If someone gets hurt or something, they have to stop the game for a bit. They're just like, okay, we'll tack a couple minutes onto the end to make up for that. But so, if you watch a soccer game, you know you're in and out in like 90 minutes usually.
Hmm.
So that's why I think it caught on a bit. But
Yeah.
the other topic that kind of came out of this was
Boy, we got way far away
yeah.
from Ric Flair there, didn't we?
But we were talking about like, I think I brought it up, but I was talking about the Flair Windham match, and I was like, I don't think this would be my favorite match, but if someone asked me my favorite match, I think this would cross my mind at least briefly. And Shad was like, I don't think I could ever give someone my favorite match. And I was like, yeah, I agree. Like, then what my statement after that was, I think if someone asked me what the best match of all time is, I could come up with a list and probably like give you what I reasonably consider to be the best match of all time, because that is like an
Hmm.
objective thing, and I find that to be easier than like telling you what my favorite match is. But I'm the same way. Like, if you ask me what my favorite song is, I couldn't tell you my favorite song.
No.
Movie and book, I could give you some, because well, like I think for like book and movie, if you ask what my favorite book is, it'd probably be Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, just because those had such like an impact on my reading habits and my taste.
Hmm.
So that kind of goes to the top. And like movie, same thing. I'd probably say The Shining, just for a lot of technical aspects, how much I rewatch it, and how much like I quote it,
Interesting.
and but like that's easier than wrestling, where it's like, because like I'm sure my favorite match, if I could decide, which I couldn't, would probably
Hmm.
be somewhere on my best matches list, but it probably wouldn't be the best match of all time, because like I think when you're talking about what is the best match of all time, there's a lot of, okay, well, there's the technical aspects, there's like the working aspects, the timing and everything. But just because it's the best match of all time doesn't mean like it's necessarily going to have like the emotional resonance that you need for something to be like.
And everybody's gonna have a different emotional hook. That's part of why I think that movies, like I can't give you my favorite movie. I can give you my top 5 favorite movies. I can't give you my favorite book. I can give you a book and then 2 book series. I can do that for you. But
I think
wrestling
books
is.
really. I think book is super easy, because book, for me, book is, for favorite is, okay, what impacted my reading habits for the rest of my life. It's kind of like
If
right.
that's if that's the answer, then I'm just going to go. I'll pull all 14 Wheel of Time books and stack them up right here,
Yeah.
because that's what I started reading. I was in middle school, and I'm like, okay, I'm kind of digging some of this stuff. I want to get into more of it. What am I going to get into? And from synopses and stuff like that, I'm like, okay, this is the one I'm going to get into. And I was just off to the races from there. I had a teacher who gave me the copy of the first Game of Thrones book, and I read it, and I'm like, this ain't for me. This don't hit the same way for me. Um,
Yeah, that's something I
eh,
think people struggle with, um, especially in the wrestling scene and stuff, but in a lot of areas where just because they don't like it, they think it's bad, which I think is a very, like, I hate when people do that, because there's a lot of times where I've watched something or read something, I'm like, this is very good, but it did not resonate with me, and I don't like it, but I will tell you up front it was good. I just did not like it.
Here's an example. Uh, God, was it from Wrestle Kingdom 2021? Maybe actually even before that, maybe like 2019. It was what, the Kota Ibushi versus Real Ospreay match, and Dave
Hmm.
Meltzer was like, given that 5 stars, and people were raving, "Oh, it's so good." And I watched it, and I'm like, "This is the most well executed match by 2 guys who are very talented that I feel absolutely zero for." Like I watched that match, and I could have watched it with the same amount of emotion that I would look outside my window and see, like, like a leaf like blowing in the wind and just like spiraling and moving on. Although I might even feel less emotion, because I would at least maybe appreciate the beauty of the leaf as it's, traipsing through the wind and going. I'd be like, ah,
I watched.
Leave in the wind.
I've watched
Yeah.
that match,
Leave in
and
the wind.
It just did nothing for me. And the
I didn't
people who
think
were
it
like,
was
"Oh my god,
good.
it's so great."
I didn't think it
I
was
think
good.
it's.
I think
think
people are on
yeah.
crack that think that's good. But I've had more
But I
fun.
would say,
I've had more fun watching the pig races at the state fair than I have watching that
yeah,
match.
yeah,
I mean, because the pig races are fucking awesome, but that's
yeah.
for another
And
conversation.
I'm not even saying. I use that match as an example, but I'm not saying like, "Oh, it's a bad match." It wasn't a bad match. It's just it did less than zero for me. It's like I have had more fun watching. If you just talk about wrestling, I've had more fun watching. There was a clip I just saw the last couple like days. It was like I'm pretty sure it was the Mulkeys just getting it was like a 30-second clip someone posted on Twitter, like the Mulkeys getting like obliterated by the Midnight Express, like Bobby Eaton like giving them fucking suplexes on the cement outside, and it's like I had more fun watching that than I did like this
I just
Kota
had,
Ibushi
it's funny you bring
Ospreay
up
match.
it's funny you bring up the Mulkeys because I was talking. It was a side conversation, but we were talking about. It was actually with the guy that does the Jim Cornette art. He agreed with me, and I said like, someone's everyone's favorite. Like I said, there are legitimate stars from the past that I would literally push out of my way to meet the Mulkeys at a convention, and he agreed with me.
Yeah. Look, there are enough people. There have been enough people in wrestling. Different folks have different hooks, and the different hooks they appeal to different people. Why do people get to be the biggest stars? It's because they've got the broadest appeal. Okay, that's fine, but that doesn't mean that people further down the card don't have appeal. To God, now I'm having to sit here and go, okay, who? I'm having to go back and it's like I would be thrilled to meet Glacier. Okay, how many people would be thrilled to meet Glacier? I would.
Actually,
Because-
I think because of the meme factor, which people are gonna be like, oh, the joke factor. I'm like, no, like, yeah, there's a meme factor to Glacier, but like meeting Glacier would be fucking awesome.
Glacier was doing a gimmick at the time that I was a martial arts guy. It resonated with me. It was cool in that, well, intentionally, kind of, sort of Mortal Kombat kind of way, and I enjoyed it. And it's like, okay, cool. I'd love to meet Glacier. It's like, hey, here's Kevin Nash. And I'm like, where's Glacier at? Not that I don't have anything necessarily against Kevin Nash, but Nash just doesn't do much for me.
I'd be happy to meet Nash, but it'd be like if there was a convention, I'm like, I'm sorry, Kevin Nash, I have to come back because Chick Donovan's over there. Like, I'll be back.
Yeah.
Like, what, the
So-
Cuban assassins here? Like, get out of my way, please.
Oh, Fidel Sierra.
Yeah.
Fidel Sierra.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man,
But
is
that's the
Ricky
thing-
Banderas gonna be there? Like with the
Yeah, but that's the thing, though. It's just like, well, the other thing is like, with some of that, it's like, you could probably run into Kevin Nash at like 5 conventions, but there are certain guys that like you might not get to see again.
Yeah.
Mm.
Like, I'm still
Well-
upset that Stan Hansen had to cancel that convention we did.
Yeah. I really wanted to go meet Stan Hansen. I was at the last convention that Nikolai Volkov did. And I got to meet, that was his last public appearance. I got to meet Nikolai Volkov. That was cool. But then it's like, not everybody's going to hit. And that is why here recently I have adjusted the way that I comment on WWE stuff. Is there's stuff there that people enjoy. You know what? Wonderful. Great. I'm glad you're having a good time. It's not for me. I didn't say it was bad. I didn't dog on it. I didn't say any of that. It ain't for me, though. So I hope you go have a good time. I just don't want to watch the company anymore. Like, their overall production thing turns me off. You know what? The meme factor on the John Cena turn was off the charts. Just the meme fuel that was amazing. Cool. Do that. But
What was the weird like this weird like hand signal? But I will say this, like people were speculating afterward too. If you want to just talk about the John Cena heel turn, people were speculating, and I will say, as a sidebar, Sidebar, like one of the worst accounts on Twitter, Heel Uzi, because
Oh,
he has
Just the name
AEW
makes
deranged.
me. Just the name
Yeah,
makes me like want him shot out of a catapult.
he
Yeah.
has like his AEW derangement centers. When that happened, it's like, oh yeah, AEW sucks. They couldn't do this, and it's like the AEW fans hate this. It's like, what? Who's bringing up AEW with this? And one and two, eight people like really strong, diehard AEW fans like myself are like, that's a good angle. I thought it was really interesting and compelling. Like, if anything, everyone should be wanting to give The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, a big handshake, a clap on the back, because he actually did a Herculean effort by actually make at least one part of WrestleMania interesting this year, when otherwise it was looking pretty like, bleh.
Yeah.
But so yeah, give him all his flowers, because he actually stepped in for the second year in a row and actually made it interesting, because WrestleMania was crap last year. And I almost want to put forth the conspiracy theory that he's the reason why Cody even has the belt, because I almost feel like if he hadn't stepped in, they would have just kept on with bloodline shit. Roman would have just kept on as champion.
That's the thing. That's the thing though with WWE though, is I give them credit a lot for like, and there's a lot of angles they do that they like. It's always the follow up that kills it, because like I haven't said, I don't know if I said it on the show, but I showed you guys that Jacob Fatu beatdown of Braun Strowman at Saturday night's main event. I thought that was awesome, but they haven't done anything with it.
They didn't do anything with it, and I think they even like made Braun like get heat back or something like that, where it's like, oh,
yeah, or like even like the Sammy thing. Like when that was going on, I said I really like this angle, but they're gonna screw it up. I don't trust them.
Yeah.
The New Day heel turn was really well done.
Didn't do a damn
was
thing with it.
excellent. They didn't follow up on it.
That is dead as a doornail.
Well,
Let's be realistic.
Well, I mean, we know why. We know why they're not following up on it.
It got Dolph Ziggler. There, that's what I was reaching for. Is it got Dolph Ziggler?
You want me to push two black men? Not gonna happen. Like,
but it's just like,
by the way,
it's just like it's follow up. Like, because I mean, I even have that problem with AEW sometimes. They'll do something really cool, and I'm like, oh, that was great. They won't mention this for 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, we've criticized them for that on the show. Where, I mean, part of that is the nature of like their shows, where it's like, okay, maybe you can't feature but yeah, they do that where it's like, oh my god, hot angle. You'll see more about it 2-3 weeks later, and it's like, no, don't do that. I understand you only have a limited amount of time. You want to feature like a lot of different people, but it's like, if you had a hot angle, so like, just do it weekly. I think they've gotten a little bit better with that, because
that's one of the things.
Some of the stuff that's really clicking right now and really has gotten over, like Ricochet and Swerve. Like, they haven't been like, oh my god, Ricochet, like assault Swerve, like he really over the heel, and then it's like, oh wow, well, you'll see more about this 3 weeks later. They haven't done that. It's been like a weekly thing.
Hangman MJF has been consistent too.
They've actually, the ratings have actually been better this year, I think, because they've kind of actually started putting stuff on TV you want to watch instead of like, filler. But I think the thing they need to learn from WWE, which is I've always said WWE does really well with big angles, is just hammering you with it. Like, oh, here's a recap. Let's talk about it. That's where I think AEW they got away from it, because they were pretty good about follow-ups, but like I'd say like the last 2 years it's been like that. Like, oh, that was really hot. Like, well, see you next month.
Mm-hmm.
But so
hold on, let me finish my thought really quickly about the Cena turn. I was gonna say, like, people who are AEW fans have positively talked about it. The one thing I have seen, people have speculated, and I like it because people talking about wrestling, I think, is good, generally good for the health of the industry, which it's not as great as people think it is. Like, it just came out that, not this week necessarily, but the week before, that Raw on Netflix worldwide got 2.6 million, which is like, you're now down like from 6 million when you debuted. And now you're less than that. You've actually you were 200,000 less than the week before.
And you're doing almost Fox numbers now. Yeah.
So the biggest wrestling brand on the planet that ever has been is nowhere near as popular as, their own diehard fans make it seem to be.
Well, there's this weird thing where people thought like there were all these people around the world like clamoring for like American wrestling. It's like, no.
Yeah,
Like
no.
even if you would put AEW on like Netflix, like they're not gonna pull like they'll pull some Brits, I think, because I think they resonate better over there. But like it's like the same thing. Like if you put AEW on Netflix, it's not like they're gonna go from their TNT ratings to suddenly like they're getting like 8 million people a week. Like it's just not like wrestling's not that popular. There's not the hunger for that in like non like English speaking markets and non like US markets for our wrestling product. Especially if they have their own promotion. That's like
Yeah, that's the thing. Is people are always going to really love their own promotion. And I don't care who it is. Is it you just don't have the same buy-in. You know, you don't have the same interest as those folks that are local that you've been going and watching in person. Just not going to happen.
yeah, I agree.
I mean, God, the fact that I even had fans shocked me. But if you deviated to pull something off TV, they'd be like, "Man, why'd you start doing that? I like your other stuff better." All right.
Yeah, it's kind of a mind fuck when people comment on your stuff that they like actually watch. Like, oh, okay, that's fucking
Yeah.
weird.
I was at a convention last year, and I was talking to some guys. I'm like, "Oh no, I used to wrestle." And they're like, "Who were you?" And I told them my gimmick names, and the guy goes, "You were Solomon Hezekiah," and I was like, "The hell? How did you? What? Okay, yeah." He knew the whole like, quote unquote, the messenger Solomon Hezekiah, and I was like, I quit using the messenger thing after like 2 shows. What the hell's going on here?
No, I've had that happen with like other like stuff I've written over the years and stuff where someone will be like, "Oh yeah, like I like your stuff. I followed it for a long time." I'm like, okay, like I'm sorry.
All right.
So anyway, we did another selection of Barry Windham matches this week because I found the worldwide wrestling match. So we're gonna do that first. So this is the whole episode. We did the whole episode. It's a 1-match show. So what I liked about this show is they brought Dusty on to guest host, and like right off the bat they really hammer you with how important the world title is.
And Dusty dressed in like an actually really nice suit.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my god, Dusty going to a wedding after this? Like, it was even like tailored. Like he looked good in that suit.
It was a little off-putting, I have to admit.
Oh yeah, the son of a plumber in this like really nice suit. What's going on?
Well, they put a lampshade on it though. He did mention
Virgil
oh yeah,
Reynolds.
this is an important occasion, so I dressed up, Daddy.
Went and got this tailored, you know.
Taking it to the pay window.
Yeah.
I'm wearing my garments.
And he did use it while I'm thinking about it. He did use during the early part of the match. He did say "funky like a monkey," which I popped.
He did.
Fuck, he did. I caught that. Before we get to the match, like this is like the entire episode of Worldwide, and it's January 24th, 1987. If people want to watch it, it's on YouTube.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll link it. Maybe I'll link the video
Put in Worldwide 87, and you'll get a playlist of like their shows, and it'll be pretty early. And Luger, I think Luger's on most of the thumbnails.
Yeah, it's yes, because before first off the show is like it's like 45 minutes roughly. Of which like the first 10 minutes are some like pre stuff. Like you see so you get a match.
You get like a Luger promo because he just came into the promotion. He's talking about how he wants to be a horseman. But it's really funny if you watch that though, because Luger over time lost his accent, but that drawl you can hear it way more in his voice than you're used to. Like
and his promo ability is not great. It's not terrible, but it's like
he got the
tell like
across.
But you can tell like he's still pretty reasonably young in the business. Yeah. So, you know, he's kind of cutting a promo and it's good. He's got a great look and everything, but he's not. It's still like, you know, you can tell he's more of a rookie, a little bit young. But
and I'll warn you with this, like they're their production on this episode is god awful, and like the cuts are like
Yeah.
someone took a chainsaw to this.
It's pretty choppy. There's a couple, so it's 45-minute watch. It goes by very quickly. The match itself is like 35 minutes. There's some preamble at that, the Lex Luger thing. There's a brief like Nikita Koloff interview.
And Jim
And I wanna
Crockett
tell her-
Jr., who has the
Oh yeah.
I would say drying paint has more charisma than Jim Crockett Jr.
Mhm.
when he talks.
Yeah. His brother Davey has all the charisma.
Yeah.
Did you guys want to hear my Nikita Koloff impression? Did you pay attention to his promo? Was this Come on, Nikita.
Actually, he's an interesting promo.
It's like, come on. I know you're not really Russian, so you can please stop with the really, really bad Russian accent. Like, I can do a better Russian accent, and I'm not good in Russian
Well,
accents at all.
it's kind of an
But
issue.
it was bad. I'm like, wait, why are you mumble mouthing this? Come on.
Because like part of it's an interesting aspect of his character. As he worked there, he slowly transitioned that his ability to communicate in English got better as time went on. So, and it gets, but it makes the accent harder the more he talks. But like, if you watch him in like '85, like he just kind of rants and raves because it's more broken. The Russian isn't so terrible. But like, Ivan Koloff's way better at it than him. And at the end, it has what I love about these old shows. So this is obviously like a Philadelphia TV station, but I love when they keep the local bumpers in, and they're all cutting their promos for like the thing, because there was a Vladimir Petrov appearance in this, who's very terrible, and it was like their replacement for like Nikita, and it's like one of those, oh yeah, here's this guy that's supposed to replace the guy that you actually like, but he has no charisma and he's not a good worker.
And we're going to give the yes chant to the Big Show, right?
Yeah. But so this is this is for TV time limit, not an hour. There's a mistake about that at one point. But this is Ric Flair and Barry Windham, and what really struck me about this is, in a lot of ways, it's kind of like the polar opposite match of the Battle of the Belts match. Whereas the Battle of the Belt match is very slow and methodical. This is very, like, up-tempo. And there's not, like, a lot of moves, but they don't slow down much in this match.
Yeah. This was kind of, people use this, like, phrase, like, too much probably, but it's, like, all gas, where it's just, there's not a lot of dead space. There's not a lot of even rest holes. There's some, but it's not like let me sit in the headlock for 10 minutes. It's like, no, like maybe for like a minute at that, like, and there's back and forth between the two of them,
and there's more Flairisms to this. Like, he's much more, there's a woo, he's cheating more. And then the one thing I will say, so before we get into this, because I had mentioned it, but so Tommy Young in this might have like the best referee performance I've ever seen in a wrestling match. Like, he perfectly positions himself where it's credible, he misses all the cheating. There's a ref bump at one point, and this blew me away. So it's like minutes later, and they're doing something else. He's not even the center of attention. He's just kind of standing there watching, and he's still kind of like holding like the leg that Barry Windham like fell on. Like, and this is minutes later, and he's still selling. Like, he sells the leg for like a good 5 or 6 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So, watching this match, you were saying all gas, so yeah, they would go into holds, but they would like dive into the hold. Everything between the holds was high speed. And this match seemed to me to be laid out as Flair's in control, building a hope spot, cut it off. And they kept playing that back over and over and over again. Not because, well, that's what you do, but because these guys were good enough to consistently get the crowd to buy into, every time Barry Windham's firing up, this might be the one that brings him back. And then Flair kept finding different ways to cut him off. And so I appreciated that a lot in this match. Like Brad said, the thing that I loved about Tommy Young was Tommy Young got in close. Tommy Young's not like they go to do a move and the guy's not over in the corner going, yeah, all right, cool, I'll come count that here in a second. He's in close the entire time. Tommy Young doesn't do, if he does the count and you're not breaking the hold, he doesn't yell at you. He just breaks the hold. He leans down and grabs your foot and breaks that figure four. He's like, don't care. You're not listening, then I'm not putting up with this.
Yeah, there was a
He
point
doesn't
where
back down.
There's a point where he told Barry Windham not to punch him, and Barry like balled his fist up and he just grabbed his arm.
Twice.
Yep.
Twice, actually. And so, yeah, if this was the thing that got me on the, like, I've seen so much good Ric Flair stuff that I was kind of like, I was struggling to focus because it's like, oh, it's another great Ric Flair. It's like eating your favorite food every day. It's like sooner or later you're going to be like, and I'm watching this and I'm like, yes, it's excellent. It's Barry Windham and Ric Flair. Of course it's excellent. What am I? But for me, Tommy Young was the one that like really, really like made this for me.
And there's a point like, so Flair's like pinning Windham, and Tommy Young gets in real close to look at the shoulders like a referee should.
Mm-hmm.
And he's in real close so he can't see it, and Flair's feet just go right up on the ropes.
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell Tommy Young can't see it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, dear God, like this is like being a good referee.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned there was a fun spot where Flair gets upset, and he's like, he gets up and like starts jaw jacking with Tommy. He like shoves him, and Tommy immediately just like shoves him back. And it's like, I've seen that spot before. Like that's not like the first time I've ever seen that spot.
Bill Alfonso did it on the other match.
Yeah, I've seen that spot before, but I thought it was really fun, and I like it because it's like you're showing that the ref is like, it's not a pushover. He's not a pushover. Like he's going to give it back too. He's role is to be impartial, but it's like don't start anything with me. I'm like just refereeing the match. I liked it.
There's one I don't remember what it is, and I don't know if I could ever find it, but I've seen one where they do that spot. And when he pushes back on Flair, Flair does the drop to his knees and like begs off on the referee when he does it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, but I love that stuff though. I love, like, that's the thing about Flair that I feel like a lot of guys even now wouldn't do. Like, that he's willing, like, Flair is Flair, but like in the ring, he has enough confidence that he's willing to like let the referee give him shit back. Because there's a lot of guys I don't think would be willing to do that.
Yeah. That's the thing that, God, there's so many. I had Brad Batten say to me once, he said, what the hell is it with these guys not realizing that this is a work? Like, back up sometime, don't take yourself so damn seriously. And, which was, gigantic ass problem. But Flair's willing to do it. Because what I see from Tommy Young in this match is, and I won't put this on them, but I see what people like Bryce Remsburg and Aubrey Edwards, like I see that's where like their reffing comes from. Is this? I'm going to try and be very professional. I'm not backing down from you. I'm being very serious about this, and I'm getting in there and trying to do a good job, kind of thing. Like, I appreciate that, as opposed to the idea that the referees are nameless, faceless, and should only be noticed whenever they're spoken to, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's one thing I've always liked about AEW referees that I think WWE needs more of, that they've lost over the years, is referees should have personalities. Like, they should have different styles that they approach things to. They should have different tolerance for crap. Like, that's, I think, like, we could just debate the pros and cons of, like, Earl Hebner, but he's, like, the last referee they had that really, like, had a personality, would fight back, wasn't, like, a cuck.
Charles Robinson did, but then whenever they brought him in, he's just another ref.
Oh, no, they weren't doing the mini Flair thing. Even they had Scott Armstrong, who I like, but they didn't use him well either. Now, there's some spots I really liked in this. So we get to see the Flair like run the ropes to the other turnbuckle thing, and he actually hits the move this time, except Barry Windham rolls through on the crossbody block. I like that.
Mm.
And then what I really liked is there's a point where Barry Windham gets the figure 4 on Flair again, like in the other match. But this time instead, like when Flair comes up, Barry Windham just punches him in the face each time he does it. Because that's the one thing I realized in these matches, in this match especially, and I think something very underrated about Barry Windham is like he uses his size really well to like his benefit and his negative in these matches. Like he never does anything where it's like it feels inappropriate. I feel like Dustin kind of got that quality from him because Dustin's really good at like using, being his size.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's some guys who don't work their size, and I think it's to their detriment. But like you said, Wyndham's good at it, Dustin's good at it, and so it's nice to see. It's nice to see. It's like, why, dude, your arms are long enough. Why didn't you just punch him in the face? And it's like, oh, well, there we go, great.
And I actually liked, so the end run of like the last couple seconds, like Wyndham knows he has to do something. And he starts hitting him with stuff, but I love how he cost himself that final pinfall just because he couldn't get to the, it took him just a little too long to get over there to start making the pin after the big, like, clothesline spot.
Yeah.
And I like the end. We can go more in the match, but I really like the end. So he cuts a promo and he's just like, I'm going to win this legitimately. And, like, he doesn't do anything snarky. He doesn't like take any cheap shots. He just puts the belt on Flair and walks away. Yeah, and there's this good, it's kind of like when the Midnights won the match. So it's Barry Windham walking away after cutting this promo, and Flair is just fucking dead in the ring with the belt on his chest.
Yeah.
But
Flair, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say this match got 5 stars from Dave, and the one from last week got 5 stars from Dave. And I was trying to think. I think I like this one better.
Oh, I like this one better
because they're both stylistically of their promotions. Like that's I think where the difference is. Like the Florida match is a very Florida match. It's very sporty and all that stuff. And this JCP one is very JCP.
Yes, that's actually a perfect way to put it. Like I like the Battle of the Belts one. I don't know if I know we don't really do like ratings, but I don't know that I would give it 5 stars. But I thought it was good, but it is a slower paced match. It is more technical, which is not a bad thing, but it's different. Whereas this one was more fast paced, more energetic. I have in my notes, like one of the things that I really appreciated about this match, and you would get that. I feel you would get that with a lot of JCP stuff, especially like their big matches. Singles or even tags, like it becomes almost like a war of attrition where it's like both guys just give it to each other, and by the end of this, like both Flair and Wyndham are like just sweaty. Now part of that could just be like, maybe, who knows, like it's this happened in January, but maybe the building had like the heat cranked up. It's like 100 degrees inside the building, I don't know, but they're just sweating, and visually someone just watching it 30 plus years later, they're almost like 38. Well, actually, no, 38 years later, I'm watching this and I'm like, oh man, like they really just gave it their all, and they just look like they had a war with each other.
I think they said this like in Cincinnati. They mentioned Cincinnati Gardens.
It made it seem more like a real fight, because that's the whole thing about wrestling, right? It's like you're suspending disbelief in that it's an actual like. It's a real fight. It's a real competition. I know this was probably still back in the day of kayfabe, but anyway, like I love that, and I feel like you would get that more with JCP, but that with a lot of other little things like that, like the Tommy Young performance, just you get more Flairisms. Barry seemed a little more into his own, even though this wasn't that much that longer in time.
Yeah,
chronologically than the Battle of the Belts 2 match. Yeah. He seemed more to have come into his own. Yeah, I just felt this was a better match. Like would I rank this 5 stars? Like
I would.
I don't know, but I would maybe I would.
It would, like I said, this wouldn't. If you were to say like, what's your favorite match of all time? I couldn't answer it. This wouldn't be one of them. But if you said, "Hey, list out like your top 25 matches of all time," this would probably like I don't know if it would make the list, but it would be in like the honorable mentions at worst. Of like if you said where are your top 25s, this would be like somewhere in that list or on the honorable mention because I had seen this a long time ago, and I was a little worried like, oh man, I'm gonna watch this and I'm not gonna like it as much, and I actually liked it more than I think the first time I saw it because there's just so much. Because I think
Yeah.
what I love about this match, and I wouldn't show it to someone new because it's too long, but like there is something. This just smacks you in the face with everything that is pro wrestling. Like this is just such a
Mhm.
pro wrestling match. Like it has all the things that make wrestling wrestling to me. Like you have the shenanigans, you have the antisocial behavior, you have the violence. Like
Yeah.
they do a lot of like there's a lot of moves in it. It's not dull. Like
Yeah.
they pace it well. Like I said, this was a long match and I never checked once to see how much time I had left.
Yeah. And look, I think that's a great point. And I want to expand upon that point because I think that that's something that gets lost nowadays because especially the very current moment where you literally had, I mean, we're compared to them a very small podcast, but shows like Busted Open
Hmm.
with Dave LaGreca and Bully Ray can get up there and literally like Dave LaGreca could almost in tears be shouting about like fuck you people who like pro wrestling, like we don't want that, we want like the storylines and everything like that, talking about like Jey Uso coming out and doing his entrance and it's like oh my god, it's this amazing, the most amazing thing ever, and it's like no, like you so completely lost. But that is like that is what the modern era is. It's like who gives a shit about that wrestling shit? I want
Yeah.
I want the entrance. I want the aura of the guy. I want him doing his catchphrases. Like the wrestling is like whatever. Like meh. It's like or to the extent that you like the wrestling, you like the overbooked fucking nonsense that you get with the bloodline. Let's have 20 run-ins. Let's have Roman Reigns stop halfway through and be like, Baby Zane, we were a fam, like in doing his like community theater bullshit. Like I don't want that. But this is an example of like what pro wrestling is. And it you don't need that extra bullshit. You don't
Hmm.
need it. You need just two dudes. Here's the premise. One guy's the champion, or he has beef with the other guy, or the other
Hmm.
guy is the challenger. He wants the title, or he just has a beef. The two guys have a beef and they're going to have a competition with each other. They're going to fight each other, and they're going to do it within the rules of pro wrestling because it's an actual orchestrated fight. Like even if you
Hmm.
watch like real fighting with UFC, MMA, whatever, there are rules. You have to operate within the rules. So they're operating within a certain rule structure, but within that, they have you have some drama in the sense like, oh, look at this guy's cheating behind the ref's back, etc. Oh, he's
Yeah.
putting his foot on the ropes. Oh,
And
he's like
but it's subtle
using a
cheating
closed
too.
fist. Yeah,
Yeah.
subtle stuff like that adds to the drama of it. But you're also seeing two guys like compete with one another, and it's that simple. It's like two guys just like going back and forth, back and forth.
And
And obviously, there's variations. Sometimes it's like you tell a great story by a guy squashing the other guy,
yeah.
maybe. But
And I think
this
to
is
your
a back and
point,
forth.
I think to your point too though, like what you're saying about well, LaGreca's a clown now, but the difference
Mhm.
between like something like this and the bloodline stuff is so this is 38 years later, and you could have someone watch this, like us, that maybe don't have like the perfect context or haven't watched TV around it for a long time. And you really don't need the context because it explains itself. But like
Mhm.
the bloodline stuff a decade from now, you're not going to be able just to come in and out of because it's not gonna make sense. It's like it's the bloodline stuff is going to be like if you just pulled up a random episode of like General Hospital from like 1986.
Mhm.
Yeah. It strong wrestling storytelling in the ring is going to be evergreen. When your storytelling relies on talking a lot and run ins and that sort of stuff, it's not as accessible. And I mean, that's why, there's New Japan stuff that you can watch, and you don't have to have the commentary on or anything like that, and you can get the story from watching a good match. You could do that with lots of stuff. You could watch it with the sound off and get the story out of it. But look, I that's part of why I say that WWE is not for me. If that's what they want, if they're all aura and talking, and then it's like, well, we're having a match because, I mean, we technically have to. We're going back to like Russo era booking, and you are not dragging me kicking and screaming back to that. Like, I will fight you tooth and nail. I will be in a fist fight with somebody in a living room to not turn that on. Like, I can't take it. If you enjoy it, great. I hope you have a great time, but I can't do it.
You know how I know it's not for me is like I actually kind of like Saturday night's main event because it focused on wrestling and their fan base hated it, and I'm just like, oh yeah, that's why this is not for me. Because I was like, oh, Saturday night's main event, like I kind of liked it. Their fan base is like, this sucks. There's too much wrestling. I'm like, what the fuck, guys?
Yeah. What do you think that? Yeah.
What's this wrestling shit?
I know.
We didn't want that.
I don't know. It's in the name of the company.
But
Yeah, can we get Jey Uso to come out and do his entrance like 5 times?
but I knew when that I mean, I knew before, but like when their fan base hated that show and I had watched it, I was kind of like, oh, this wasn't bad. I kind of had fun with it, and then the fan base hated it. I'm like, oh yeah, like this is why this shit's not for me, because when they do stuff I like, their fan base revolts. So that's why when I would like when we were making fun of CM Punk about the ring thing, and I was talking about how he probably mauls over stuff people like us say, when we're the last people he should care about our opinions about like the shit he does. But like
where he is now, he should not give one slim damn about what we have to say.
But he would mauled if he heard us like shitting on him though.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He has the most fragile of egos I've ever. Like eggshell thin, wafer thin.
Yeah.
He is wafer thin.
Wafer thin.
But
wafer thin.
I wanted to add that I think mauling is my new favorite like insult about people seething that I learned.
All right. So first of all, what I'd like you to do is spell it for us.
So it's MALD. So it's mauling. So it's mad and bald. So you're so mad you're balding. So it's mauling.
All right. I'm gonna have to look this up. Hang on. Urban Dictionary. Mauling. All right, let's see. The Urban Dictionary definition: when someone is expressing a large magnitude of rage, often over something relatively small, that the stress that they are giving upon themselves causes their hair to fall out.
See, it's one of my new favorite words that the internet created.
Oh God, that reminds me. I got to share this with you guys. The other day, my wife, she and I were talking about something, and I was like, she's like, what do you think about this for dinner? And it's like, I mean, we can go there. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's mid. Just across the board, it's mid. And she stops for a minute, and she goes, the thing about being married to you as long as I have is you say mid, and you're saying mid quality, middle of the road. And I'm immediately thinking you're calling it mid-card, as in it's not good enough to be the reason you go to a restaurant. And I was like, that works?
People use mid incorrectly, I think. Because a lot of times people like use mid to mean bad. It's like, no, mid is not bad. Mid means it's mediocre or average.
Mediocre!
I randomly say that to myself because it's too bad they fucked up with Fable 3, because Fable 2 was a fun game.
I was going Fury Road with it, but
there's in Fable 2 there's an arena thing, and if you do kind of whatever, the announcer yells mediocre like that.
Mediocre.
Shiny and chrome.
Like I said, I would say for this match, it would be somewhere in like my top matches of all time, because I really love this. It did so much well. And it's yet another one to say when people say Ric Flair worked the same match, I would show Battle of the Belts in this back to back and be like, no.
Yeah.
Like, look
It-
at
I
it-
don't.
it's-
Go ahead.
I was like, look at how different these matches are. But I will say,
Mhm.
I've come away from these, and I will. It's a probably controversial statement, but I kind of want to say I think Barry Windham is Ric Flair's best opponent ever. Because there's just something about the way they interact and like foil each other in the ring that just.
I don't know that I agree, but I'm not going to be like, no, that's wrong. Like that.
Yeah.
That's certainly a debatable point, but it's not
Mhm.
a contentiously, in my opinion, it's not a contentiously debatable point. It's
Yeah.
not like I think Ric Flair's best opponent was, Jeff Jarrett in WCW. Like it's not like even like something off the wall or whatever.
No, I mean,
like,
because
"Eh,
it's.
that's
Because your answers are going to be
They-
it's going to be Steamboat, it's going to be Luger, it's going to be Sting, and it's going to be Wyndham. I think
Yeah.
those are going to be like your bog standard what people think answers.
Yeah.
the thing I would say to that point. Again, not necessarily agreeing, but it's not a bad argument to make that argument.
Hmm.
Watching Battle of the Belts 2 and this, and just watching them and really like analyzing them, because we are wrestling nerds. We not only just like enjoy wrestling, but we actually like pick it apart.
Yeah.
Not because there are people who pick it apart because they can do it to like an obsessive level, and it's like, how are you finding enjoyment in this?
Yeah.
This we like it so much, we're picking it apart like, oh my god, this has layers.
Yeah.
Looking at them and analyzing it, to me, my personal opinion, but to me it's like, oh, and you could tell. We've talked through the stories before. It's like, oh, Ric Flair, he liked he would go to a territory. It's like, oh, I like Al Madril. I'm gonna have like a 15-minute match with him, and I'm gonna give him like a lot of offense.
Or he used to
Mhm.
get
And
he used
or
to get
Italian
yelled
Stallion.
at.
I'm gonna do like a 20-minute match with Italian Stallion.
No, he
and
legit
Booker's gonna
used,
get mad at me.
he used to get in trouble because he liked working with George South, and he'd be like, "Stop
Yeah.
working long with George South on TV."
Yeah. Like he's a jobber. Stop giving you so much offense. It's like, but I like him. He's a buddy of mine. Like it's fun. Like that's it. Like we know that Flair had guys that he liked, so he'd have good matches with them. He'd give them a lot, whatever. Because for Flair is many things. He's a complicated person. That's as the older you get, the more you'll learn from life. It's like there are many people that you maybe put on a pedestal, but human beings are complicated creatures. So they can be capable of very high highs and very low lows. And Flair himself is a very complicated person, which we talked about on the show. But looking at those two matches, not to digress too much, looking at those two matches, it's clear that he really liked and respected the hell out of Barry Windham. And Barry Windham, that the people should take away from last show and this show,
Hmm.
and just watching the expanse of Barry Windham's work, is that he was a phenomenal talent. There is arguments to be made that around this time, roughly, that Barry Windham was in the contention or on the short list of best in the world. If he wasn't, we don't consider him the best in the world at this point or around this point in the late 80s, mid to late 80s.
Yeah.
And he is on the list of like the top 5, top 10 best workers
I think
in the planet of any lucha, North American wrestling, European wrestling, Japanese wrestling. He was at a elite level.
I think
But it's clear that Flair, based upon just these two matches, Flair loved the hell out of him. Like he respected him. They had great chemistry with one another. Flair gave him a lot. You could see it. Like you watch enough wrestling like we have, you can see where he's giving guys stuff.
Yeah. I think honestly, if Wyndham could have found some way to I think there is an argument that if Wyndham could have found some way to have a good 89 through 91 and turned that run into like 86 to like early 93, I think you could have him legitimately in the GOAT conversation. It's that like 89 to 91 span where he doesn't wrestle much and he goes to WWE and the quality of his work isn't there, that like really
Yeah.
tanks his like long term like
Yeah.
legacy, which is really sad because like he's like he is awesome.
Yeah.
Like I like
And
if you imported him into modern era, like I don't even think you would have to change his offense that much.
I think he would have to add to it, but that's not saying that it's bad. It's just kind of more of an update for the just kind of some more contemporary stuff in it.
I'm not quite sure who you would equate him to in terms of like modern wrestlers,
Dustin. He's Dustin. Dustin is like modern Barry, like because I could see
Dustin is great. People don't give Dustin the credit that he is, but Dustin in 2025 has been around for like 30 plus years. So I'm saying if you were to kind of equate him at his like peak to a modern wrestler, I don't know. I almost want to say somebody like Hangman Page. I feel like I'm doing that because they're both kind of like cowboy Southern style wrestlers. I don't know, but it's like think of that level where it's like Hangman Page, right, is a phenomenal worker. He's elite level, in my opinion, worker. And a tremendous promo, like tremendous in ring, like great character work. And Barry had that for a time. Unfortunately, Barry didn't. He had this periods where he couldn't sustain it. Now, part of that was because like his family stuff going on, so real life drama. Part of that was him injuring his knee, which we talked about last show. But the thing about Barry, and I'm sure Brad could expand upon this, but he stepped out for a second. But Barry did have those periods where it's like because of injuries and other things, his quality and his career kind of fell off. But by the late 90s and the early aughts, which is like the tail end of his career, he actually was coming back. Like he actually had some good performances in very late 90s WCW. Yeah. And in the early aughts, I've said before, like I haven't seen it, but he did like a year or so because the promotion didn't last that long. But Dusty's indie promotion, Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling, he was part of that. He was heavily featured. He was like the world champion for a while, and I haven't seen it, so I guess I can't verify. And in the years since, it's like all things are equal, but they're not equal because a match that was great, stuff that was great in 2000 would not necessarily hold up to the quality of 2024, 2025, like the modern era. But I had heard at the time that, his work is like great. He's having like, not like career performances. Because he had very high highs in the late 80s, but that he was doing very well, especially for someone who was, of that point, older and at the tail end of his career.
So I remembered because I was still a little newbie fan at the time when they brought Barry Windham in. Flair brought Windham in late 90s, I guess. And he ended up, the stretch before he went in with the West Texas Rednecks, he was doing stuff and they were showcasing him on TV regularly. And the thing was, at the time I was kind of like, because I had asked my friends who knew more about me at the time, and they're like, it's Barry Windham, he used to be a guy. And I'm like, okay. But I'm watching him, and one of my favorite things that he did that I didn't see in any of these matches. So I guess this was an innovation later in his career. Was his finish started being the superplex, but it wouldn't just be that he did a superplex. Barry Windham would do a superplex and then float over as part of the motion into the pin, and I loved that. That's an adaptation that he made as he went. I was just like, damn, that's good.
I've said before, like back in the day, when you were a little kid, like you'd play with like toys, whatever, like that. I didn't really have like a lot of like wrestling toys, like the like the old school, like not the LJN big rubber ones. I had like 2 of them, so that wasn't. But or even like the I think they were Hasbro, the Hasbro like WWF stuff that didn't have much articulation. I had a lot of those GI Joes, so I used GI Joes. It's like my wrestlers, and I so loved the Barry Windham float over superplex. Then I had like one of my characters. I think it was like Duke, GI Joe, like lore. The character of Duke, who's he's a pretty high ranking. He's like one of the GI Joe like commanders, whatever. Like I had that. He did a superplex, and I'd have him do the superplex to like a bad guy.
Yeah.
And he would do like the float over, like and pin the guy.
Yeah.
Like that was his finishing move, superplex
Yeah.
and float over. And actually, if you think about it, like it makes actually perfect sense. It's like you just use your momentum to float right over, and superplex is like that's a believable finish.
Oh yeah,
I'd love to see a dude like pull that off now, but I also feel like if a guy the size of Barry Windham, like that was completely believable. Like I wouldn't want like a 5'6" dude to be doing like a superplex.
No, but
I don't need Jonathan Gresham doing a superplex.
How can I best? If you had something, I really enjoy the aesthetic of somebody having a good float over into a pin out of their move. It's just something that it's just a little. Let me say it differently. Folks that have that as part of the move where they just kind of transition into it, to me makes it look like they are more skilled, more talented, like they're putting that extra little bit in that sets them aside, and I love it. So you don't see that as often, but when I do see it, I really, really appreciate it. And so it's like, could do with seeing some more stuff like that. I'm down with seeing some more. I'm down with seeing that sort of thing. Let's try that.
I wanted to mention. Sorry, I had to let the dog out. I wanted to mention one thing I appreciate about Barry Windham is I like that he does the superplex. That's like one of his big moves. But I love the fact that because he does the superplex, that in the matches he actually does a vertical suplex, which a lot of guys do not have that attention to detail in their repertoire.
Yeah. I don't know that his drop kick, in my opinion, his drop kick was underrated. Because he did do it's not like a picture perfect chef's kiss, like beautiful drop kick like Okada does.
Yeah.
Where he just gets like amazing air and just perfectly dropped, like it's almost like a missile strike right into the guy's like face kisser. But
2 missile drop kicks in these matches we've seen from him.
Yeah. Barry did a good one, and it's impressive because he's a dude who's like, I know he's built as like 6'6", but he looks like that's probably like kind of legit. Like he's a tall dude. So he did it, and it really kind of just mounted like jumping up. And I felt his drop kick was more like he's kicking with like one foot versus the other, but it still looked great. And it's impressive because like a dude that size getting that amount of air. Like I'm not near that tall, and he was more athletic back in the day than I'm sure I am. But like if I had to do, I remember like I don't know if I said this in the podcast before. I remember like a match that was from WWF, like late, like maybe Attitude Era WWF, but Jim Ross's doing commentary for it. And some dude does a drop kick from that into like a guy in the corner, and it's a drop kick that he maybe like he's doing it to a guy in the corner, so it's like lower, but he does it, and he maybe gets like 6 inches off the ground when he does the drop kick. So and JR quips like, "Oh, that's about my level of drop kick.
I know what you're talking about.
Do that." And it's like, it's like I don't know that I could do a Barry Windham drop kick where it's like, even if I'm 6'6", I don't know that I can jump up and kick a dude in the face who's like 6 foot tall at least. I don't think I can do that. It was impressive athletic feat.
He does the other style of drop kick you don't see as much. So there's like your standard drop kick you're thinking of where the guy goes up, does like the double foot kick. He kind of does what I would call like the kickoff drop kick, where it's more like he's getting up and catching you with like a kick versus like your standard thing where he's kind of just making contact with like that first foot. And it's more like a jumping kick. I don't know how to describe it, but I'd say it's more like a kickoff than it is like your standard drop kick. And a couple of modern guys do that. It's more of a bigger guy thing, I think. And when you have those long, lanky legs, I think guys tend to do that a little more. But He
Yeah.
gets some good ups on it. And I want to say I really liked I know it's the not appreciating Ric Flair, but like the way he hit the shin breaker on Wyndham in this match, I loved.
Mm-hmm.
I love Rick's shin breaker. I will always pop also for the Ric Flair like knee. Sometimes the rolling knee where he like does the
Oh,
knee
the one
drop.
out of the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That-
he does
Yeah.
the knee drop. Sometimes he rolls, or sometimes he doesn't.
He does. He kind of like it's like a. It's hard to describe. But I do, and like the way he hits and he kind of rolls like out
Yes.
of it. Yeah, I, like
I
that.
think he missed it this
He did.
this match.
Because there was that
But-
stretch where they were kind of like
Yeah.
eating shit on moves, and then the next guy would get up and they'd go for their thing, and then the guy would move.
So I actually saw like because like there's these YouTube sometimes you see like wrestlers or people who've been trained they like let me show you how you do the moves and this guy actually showed how you do that the Ric Flair knee drop and even with the rolling thing.
Yeah.
So I've seen how it's done, but even so, like knowing like how the magic trick is done, like it's still impressive to me because Flair would time it perfectly and did it in a way that it did look like you're dropping your knee right on this dude's like head.
It's,
And then rolling through, but you do. I mean, you were a worker, Shad. You do it in a way that it's almost like smoke and mirrors. It's like I'm looking like I'm doing that, but I'm not really. But he did it, and the somersault motion had to have been like kind of like obfuscating the actual like I didn't really like
well, I
just
think,
crush this dude's noggin with my knee.
Yeah.
I think even
But
knowing
I
how
love the move. I love the move. It's a fantastic visual move in my opinion.
I think the thing with Flair doing that though is even if you know how the sausage is made on that, like the fluidity that he does it with, like, because I mean, you could show me how to do that, and I'm probably gonna look like a fucking dead animal trying to like. I could probably do like the mechanics of it, but I'm gonna look ungraceful as like shit doing it. Like I'm not gonna have that level of smoothness and crispness to it.
Yeah. Matt, you're right. Doing the roll afterward, what it does is that continuous sense of motion draws your eye, so you're not staring at it going, "Did he really hit him with his knee?" No, it keeps that suspension of disbelief going. I never did do a knee drop like that. I did a Samoa Joe style knee drop where I'd hit the ropes, come off. I'm doing the knee drop, but I'm coming down on both knees, but I've got the one knee out to do the thing. Except for me to make it look good, I was having to drop the knee like on your chest or on your shoulder or something. Like I was mushing you a little bit on a knee drop.
I also like.
But,
I also like Ric Flair's like Wile E. Coyote when he goes to the top and a guy's like gonna throw him off, and he's just like, no, like I like talking about things like you don't appreciate about him, but like just the expression and how much he emotes on that is just it's so great.
Yeah.
Chad, I don't know if you paid attention, but did you look at like Barry's punches? Because
Yep. Same way.
his punches look so good.
They do. No,
it's
just because
not
I
as if
figured
I'm like,
out how
oh,
he did it does not
I-
mean
it's
that it's not good.
It's like, oh, I've never seen like a Barry Windham match. It's like I've seen plenty of Barry Windham matches, but it's like I actually I watched this match carefully, and I'm like, damn, he had some really good working punches, like fantastic.
Did you see what I told you about after the show last week?
When he had Flair like on his knees and he was doing like the one to the head, I'm like, God damn it, Shad is dead on what he's doing. Because like once you told me that, I was watching like, oh yeah, that's what he's fucking doing, like right, because it was just like
But
right
it looks
here.
great.
It was like
That's the
right here.
thing.
He's going like this the whole time, like just.
But it's fantastic, isn't it? It looks amazing.
It does, but
You don't have to kill somebody to do a good working punch.
But he started doing it. I'm like, okay, like, oh, yep, Shad's dead on. Like that's what he did.
Yep. And I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
It was such an unnatural motion for me that I couldn't do a good job doing that.
It makes me think of it just makes me think of like the from one, I think it was from one of his books, but when Mick Foley's talking about like Terry Funk like punching him,
Yeah.
And like he's just getting potatoed left and right by Terry Funk, and Terry goes, "Oh, damn, Cactus, you thought I was actually good," and it's like, okay,
Yeah. That legendary left in the corner. Here it
yeah,
comes. Oh my God, he's gonna hit me with that legendary whack. And he's like, what the hell? Terry, you just hit me as hard as you could. Just that big left hand.
oh damn, Cactus, oh man,
Oh,
I love
gee,
it so much.
Cactus, I don't know what you were expecting.
But I think it's interesting, like seeing like I said, like I watching these so close together, which I'm glad we did. I was like, wow, they kind of worked like almost the exact opposite style of match.
yeah,
And what I liked about it too, to go to the Flair works the same match over like all the time, is they didn't reuse much at all.
No.
Like even Wyndham putting him in the figure four, which is really the only rerun they did. They did it differently because he was punching him.
yeah,
Yeah. Man, it's one of those things where it's just really good. Okay, all right. So we had Flair Windham. Can we grab another one?
Yeah, so we're gonna go up to.
Right.
This
Can I
is
add something real quick though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to touch upon the Cactus Terry Funk thing. It's like, oh gee, Cactus, maybe you wouldn't have minded my punches if you weren't such a goddamn coward. You're a goddamn coward, Tommy. I need to watch that. I need to watch that dumb pay-per-view again.
No,
just for
that pay-per-view is so bad. And the worst part is
it's not
right.
good.
The worst part is
He
he's
was.
right.
Tommy Dreamer was a coward.
So we're gonna go to December of 1988. So this is Bobby Fulton versus Barry Windham. Was the U.S. title online? I don't think it was.
It was not.
No.
No, it wasn't. But so the commentary here, was this the one with Jim Ross in the commentary?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And Jim Ross has this whole discussion at one point. Excuse me, where he's talking about how like Bobby Fulton's tag partner Tommy Rogers for the Fantastics, that he's not. If anything, he's a little jealous that Bobby Fulton's getting this time to shine. Like anytime that Bobby Fulton can, or anyone can have a match with like the not the world champion, but what was this, like
U.S.
the
champion?
U.S. title?
Yeah.
Like against like the U.S. champion, like having a on TV and everything. It's it's the showcase for him. So it was not for it, but they were really hyping up, which I actually like, because in kayfabe terms, it's like, yeah, of course, like, yeah, of course you actually are raising your stock, because it's like I'm having a featured match against like the U.S. champion. Even if it's not for the title, it's like it's a big deal. If I beat the champion, then that's going to do great things for me.
Well, and you would justifiably be up for like a title shot if you did that. Like if you beat him in a non-title.
Mm-hmm.
So we've talked about the Fantastics versus the Rock and Roll conversation before, about how Ricky Morton is the best of the four, but I kind of think the Fantastics are overall a better team because Bobby Fulton is better than Robert Gibson, and Tommy Rogers isn't that much like of a downgrade to Ricky Morton. So they like the whole of the Fantastics is better than the whole of the Rock and Roll. And I also think the Fantastics being willing to do like the more bloody brawly stuff is where they really stand out versus the Rock and Rolls. But like, if you think, because you get that sometimes where people think like Bobby Fulton is like Robert Gibson, and it's like, well, no, watch this, because you'll see a guy, you'll see like this is probably, I would say, his best singles match ever, and I don't even need to see his other singles stuff to say this is probably like the best he did. But like, this is really good.
This is fantastic. I enjoyed the hell out of this.
This was a good match. I would say generally, to your point, Brad.
Making a joke.
I haven't seen a ton. Well, I just got that, Chad. So,
yeah.
I haven't seen like a ton of Fantastics. Like I've seen more Rock and Roll.
Yeah.
I
don't watch
I
the
would
stuff
still,
with Jackie Fulton. Very bad.
Oh yeah. I would rank. I'd rank the Rock and Roll still higher than the Fantastics. But Fantastics are kind of an underrated tag team. Like they kind of almost like in the modern era, they kind of fly under the radar. But you have a great point where they were. Even though I would rank Rock and Roll higher, they were like on that level and don't get the credit of being at least like at the time like contemporaneously about that level of like good tag teams.
Like I
But
think like I
you are
think
right. You're
um
right. They for a team that was effectively, and I'm sorry to cut you off,
oh,
but
you're fine.
effectively like a blowjob babyface tag team.
Yeah.
They could and did do that. Now we're gonna have like for the time essentially like a fucking hardcore match where we're gonna get each other bloody, like the match we saw not that long ago versus the sheep herders. It's like,
Yeah.
what is this match? Oh my god!
Well,
Yeah.
Like they're
to-
just getting bloody and violent and doing like
and the
dark
Clash
violent shit.
the Clash
Yeah.
the Clash
Yeah.
1 match with the Midnights where they like got the table out and everything. Like I don't think the Rock and Roll could have those matches. To
I
that
feel like
degree.
they could have, but didn't.
They didn't like getting
Um,
stiffed, and I don't think
Yeah.
Robert could hold his own as well. But I will say, again, and this is something Jim Cornette has said that I tend to agree with. But Jim Cornette will say he thought the Fantastics were a better opponent for the Midnights than the Rock and Roll, and I kind of agree with that.
It's interesting. I hadn't heard him say that, but look, man,
Because
I'm
there's just
gonna be biased because I'm a big Bobby Fulton fan.
Right.
So I can't. I was looking for where I had that figure he gave me tucked away, but
I found mine recently, actually, the one we got at the convention.
I know I've got it, but I think what I did is I have it packed away because I'm rearranging stuff in my den right now. Man, this match was fantastic. Not to do it again. I loved watching this match because everything in it was logical progression. Bobby Fulton didn't do. He did a lot of like babyface takes it to the heel stuff, and when Windham got over on him, it made sense. And when Bobby Fulton got back over on Windham, it made sense. There weren't any cliches like, oh, he slipped on the figurative banana peel. Whoops! Guess what happened? Herpy derpy derpy, and yeah, that right there.
Matt,
And you didn't have any of that. Hey, Matt.
Matt,
Yeah, there you go.
Oh wow.
Yeah. You didn't have any of that. Everything had a logical progression. You could absolutely believe that Bobby Fulton was being a threat to Barry Windham because Bobby Fulton was just on that night. It worked, man. I enjoyed the hell out of watching this.
well, I liked a lot of what Bobby Fulton's offense revolved around. It was trying to neutralize Wyndham's size advantage.
Yeah.
And I really liked
actually
JJ and Tommy Rogers on the outside. The way they played that, I really liked.
so
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I really like this match a lot. Maybe for different reasons than you guys did. To me, watching it, there's 2 points. Like one, I like the fact that Fulton was a smart face. Meaning that when Barry or JJ Dillon were doing like heel shenanigans, like it wasn't like, oh no, I slipped on the banana peel. Like
Yeah.
he was self-aware and cognizant of some of the stuff they were doing. So it'd be like, oh, you're gonna do this, like I'm gonna catch you, not gonna throw a punch to you or something. Like he was self-aware. He was aware of like some of the shenanigans going on, and he would actually try and counteract them, and did to a large extent counteract them.
Mm-hmm.
But the second reason I really like this match, it wasn't even like, oh, what a great Bobby Fulton match, etc. It's like I actually was watching this, and this was when obviously Barry at this point had turned heel. It was the Horseman, I think, at this point.
Yeah, because he had turned. This is December, so he had turned.
Yeah.
He turned on Luger at Clash 1 because they won the
Yeah.
tag titles, and he like immediately like turned on him.
Yeah. But looking at this, like from a actual, I guess it's because you watch the Flair Wyndham match, watch the tag title match that we'll talk about next. But but obviously watching last week's shows, watching Luger, like the progression of Luger. So now, like all the matches we've seen now, it's like this match as a heel. Well, I guess we watched last week. He was heel against Luger at Chi-Town Rumble. But point is, like watching him, like mostly face now as a heel, like it was very impressive to me. From again, as I said a few minutes ago, analyzing wrestling, because you've seen so much of it. You now analyze it. The enjoyment is not even just like is this match good or not. It's you're actually doing a deep dive of the match. It's like analyzing for little things.
Well,
From a technical
I think going with what you're saying, the dichotomy is interesting that we've seen. Getting to see him work and excel at working on top and underneath is where he really stands out. Because some guys, like, we're kind of talking about that with Charlotte a couple weeks ago, about how Charlotte's not a great face because she's not sympathetic. She can't really work underneath and stuff because she's just so big. But Barry is really good. And I said that last week. Barry's really good at, like, if he's dealing with a smaller opponent, he's really good at making that, like, timely, devastating mistake that's going to get him underneath as a face.
And they don't make him look like a moron.
No.
Yeah.
So,
but I thought that from this perspective, watching Barry as a heel, like it was fascinating to me because from a technical perspective, from the actual technical, and Shad, you've been in the ring. I've never been in the ring, ever.
Mm-hmm.
I would not even presume to, but I've watched enough of it. Not that makes me any expert versus compared to you, someone who's actually done it. But watching enough of it, I'm like, I feel like I can pick out some things from a technical perspective. I'm like, oh my God, like watching this, you can see some of the things he was doing differently that I thought was fascinating and actually elevated the match to me. Not even coming from the perspective of like, is this a good match? Like, yeah, Bobby Fulton had a great performance against Barry. I was looking at it more from the Barry Windham perspective of you're playing heel, you're actually now playing into all like the heel tropes and doing things like you're actually directing the match in some ways as a heel. You're doing things completely different. I've seen you. I just watched a match with you and Flair where you're the face. Flair's doing all the heel stuff. You're interacting. You're being very like proactive, etc.
And he also, to go with your point, he takes the flash down a couple of notches. Like some of his flashier moves he doesn't do as a heel. Like the bulldog kind of goes away. Some of the really like flashy shit because he doesn't want to pop the crowd.
Yes.
That's one thing I've always said about a heel is you don't want to like bore the crowd, but like you want to boring it up a bit as a heel. Like you don't want to overshadow.
And he was doing that, and he was doing it like he slowed it down a little bit. There was one spot he did where it's like, you're playing the arrogant heel. It's like, oh, I got this guy. Now I'm going to like slowly do it. I'm going to come and do like the elbow drop. And then Fulton moves.
Yes.
And it's like, you're eating shit as the heel. Yeah. Like he did from a technical perspective, he did, if you actually, again, you watch wrestling as much as we have, you see what Barry's doing. Like he dialed it in a way that Bobby Fulton as the face had all the flashy offense. He would have the big comebacks. Barry would feed into that, where it's like he timed it where it's like, I'm going to do a move. Oh my God, I missed the move. Oh my God, now the babyface is pummeling me like fiery comeback. It's like, and it's like, again, you see how the sausage is made kind of, where you watch it, it's like, you're like, it's the, I think I used this analogy like a week ago or so, but it's the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Leo DiCaprio, like you're like, sitting there smoking, like you sit up and you point. It's like, I see what they're doing. I see it. Yeah. You see it. Like Barry Windham was actually really, in my opinion, this was actually. You could talk about.
I said this match was better than it had any right to ever be.
But you were saying like, oh, this is a great like Bobby Fulton performance, and it was, but. Looking at this, I was looking at this from the Barry Windham perspective, and I'm like, this was a fantastic match from heel Barry Windham. He was doing all the stuff as a heel, and I don't know how much he had been a heel at this point in his career. Not that much, I don't think.
I don't know if he was in Florida before he went to WWE. Like he would have been a face from like 84 to like 88, and then like I know in
Yeah.
like 79, 80, and 81 he was. There might have been a heel turn somewhere in like 82 or 83, but I don't know for a fact if he
And
was.
he obviously was a second generation worker because Blackjack Mulligan was his father. So
He's
he'd been
way
around the
better
business.
than
I think he's
Blackjack though.
oh yeah, yeah. But I think he started like 78, 79. So he had by 88 he'd been around like 10 years or so. But I don't
Yeah.
know that he had a lot of experience as a heel, but he did. I mean, he was in good company with Flair and other people, but he, in my opinion, did a fantastic job as a heel. Like he got it being a heel. He got now it's based on this one match. It's like, oh, Barry Windham, one of the best heels of all time. It's like no, but this was a great heel performance, and he got all the little details that you want to get as like a heel. Like you slowed things down, so you made the babyface shine because they did flashier shit than you did, and you didn't
Yeah.
have to do like you just. Oh, it's like if you're at 10, I just got to dial it down to like 5 or 6. Let the
Mhm.
other guy be like an 8 or 9 or 10.
He
And it's like that's
also
all you need to do.
he also like he didn't make a lot of changes to his appearance, but like I like that he went from like being a blonde to like he had like a touch of like he went to a darker look, and like he was greasing his hair a bit, so he kind of sleazed himself up real good as a
Yes.
heel.
I was gonna say that he looks a little greasy.
Yeah.
So
like,
the
like I haven't showered in like a week. I'm a little greasy. Like it probably smelled a little bit.
I
Yeah.
want to be honest. The the Iron Claw
Mm,
Blackjack Barry Windham or whatever version, like that is my
yeah.
favorite version of him because the dude has what he has done in that is made his like structured his gimmick in a way that makes it so easy to do stuff with and work around and have things that you're doing. Like I love all of it, and it's like that is my favorite. Like every Barry Windham we've seen, give me Iron Claw Barry Windham every time. That's who I
Mm.
want. Like that's my favorite version. Except he didn't do that float over superplex. Damn! Now I'm talking myself into a corner.
I do want to say though, so at the end Bam Bam runs in, and
Yes.
so Bam Bam gorilla press slams him, and I watched Barry go up for that. I'm like, I think I could gorilla press slam him with like no effort. Like I bet I wouldn't even feel it because like he went up for that thing like it was like it didn't even look like Bam Bam had to even like do anything. It looked like Barry did all the work. And I also liked so there's a lot of cheating from JJ Dillon towards the end. And I really like the way Tommy Rogers was selling that because Tommy would be watching the match, he'd look over, he's like, hey, you know, and then he finally just has enough and he just goes to town on JJ
Mm,
and
yeah.
then the run in. Because Bam Bam was here for a bit. And then, you know, I always appreciate like a Sir Oliver Humperdinck appearance.
Mm.
Uh,
I actually forgot that Bam Bam had like a really brief stint.
Yeah, because
In,
because it's Starrcade in
it-
'88. They wrestle for the title and then Bam Bam's gone.
yeah, I actually like at this point, God, 30 years ago or 20, 20 certainly in the 25-year. I watched an old maybe it was the Starrcade match. I watched like the match between Barry and Bam Bam, and I remember when I watched it as a child, I was like, oh, this match sucks. So I don't know. I would need to watch it again to see
It's
if it actually was
okay, I
good or
think,
not.
but I don't think Bam
Okay.
Bam was there very long. I think maybe 6 months.
No.
And I
Yeah,
think
he was there like he was there and gone.
and I think he
quick.
notoriously like even admitted to it that he kind of didn't want to be there and he was dogging it a bit.
Yeah.
did Bam Bam ever win a title in one of the major companies? Because
Tag
I
title
cannot
with the
think.
Jersey Triad and WCW. I think he had.
Thank you. Okay.
I think he had the hardcore title at one point. I think in ECW he had everything, but we can talk
Yeah.
about if we
Right.
consider that major or not. But yeah, he had the title with the Jersey Triad.
I forgot about the Jersey Triad.
And he had the New Japan tag title with Scott Norton. I think that's it for like the big leagues. I don't think he ever had anything in WWE.
I don't think so.
Because
But
remember,
the
like
jersey,
the closest I think he got in WWE is like they did that tag tournament, and you thought he and Tatanka were gonna beat like I think 1-2-3 Kid and Marty Jannetty, or 1-2-3 Kid and Bob Holly, and then
yeah.
they won it, and then lost it like the next night to like the Smoking Guns or something like that.
It just took me off guard because we're watching this talking about Bam Bam in a title match. And I'm like, where did he have one? And man, the Jersey Triad was one of the things I liked in WCW in a period where I didn't like much in WCW. So I just didn't watch them a whole lot.
I feel like with Bigelow, if I was booking him, I probably wouldn't put a belt on him just because you don't need it. Like, just keep him strong.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where it's like, just did he ever do it? You know?
So he had the Southern Heavyweight belt once in Memphis, which, I mean, 5 million people had that. ECW had the world title and the TV title. New Japan tag title.
With Vader.
Yep. And then WCW hardcore title one time. Then he had the tag titles twice, once with DDP and then once with DDP and Chris Canyon. Because I think they won it, and then like Saturn and Benoit won it on like a Nitro and then lost it on Thunder or something to them. Like they did one
I
of
don't
those.
remember. I don't remember that one.
World Wrestling Federation, he did have a Slammy award. Because I love that era. Was that 94 when Owen had the 2 Slammies and he'd come out with his trophies all the time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
War, he had the 6-man titles one time, and then he got the Observer Rookie of the Year in 86. And then Pro Wrestling Illustrated, he was number 24 in 1994.
Mm.
That's kind of, but like if I was booking him though, I mean, I was, because Chad was talking about it, I was thinking like, would I put a belt on Bam Bam? And I'm like, no, because I don't think he needs it.
I think it would be a doable thing if you've got big heel Bam Bam as your as the guy to beat in the mid card. You know, he's holding your mid card title, but he's the big scary mid card guy. And so, can you take the international, Eurocontinental, whatever title off of him, and you could use that to like believably move him in and out of that, and then what happens is you could like have somebody's big push go off of that. Does he need it? No, but I'm of the opinion that sooner or later, if you've got someone who's on your card and doing good work for you, that it's a nice way to give him a visible pat on the back.
I also feel like if I had him, he'd be best served with like a 6-month run where you just build him up as like a monster, and then you do the big program where the face just beats him, and like at the top of a big show, like after you've spent like 4 or 5 months of just making him look like a monster.
Yeah, well, I would say the face beats him after the long, drawn out, hard fought, absolutely destroys both of them kind of thing. And then you give him some time off, and when he comes back pissed off, so you can monster him some more.
Because like I love Bam Bam. So this is not like a shot at him, but like there's a reason. Like I think if I had Vader, like Vader would get my world title. But like Bam Bam, I don't think is served in that same position. But like there's something about Vader that like you can put him on top, like, you know, putting your belt on him makes sense. And Bam Bam's more like, I don't know, he's just kind of a step below. And I think like, because you're not gonna put him on the top of your card all the time, but I also think he's good enough and charismatic enough, and like he's imposing enough that you really don't need belts to keep him over. Like the functional purpose of a belt, I just don't see why he needs it. Whereas Vader, it's like, well, if I put the belt on Vader, like, you know, there's a lot of stuff I could do with him, and I don't necessarily see Bam Bam in like a main eventer thing. Like Bam Bam to me is like an upper mid carder, but it's just like he's kind of like that Buddy Landell. It's like, well, I can job him, and like he'll just come out, kill some jobbers, and be like a maniac, and he'll get it back pretty quick.
Yeah.
That is that's like a conversation I think to have at some point about the curse of being in that Buddy Landell position where it's just like, oh yeah, you could job the fuck out of them and it doesn't matter. But we've talked about that with Buddy, and I think like
Yeah.
people have talked about that in the past with like Gorgeous George, that he like never won because like he could just infuriate people so much that yeah, he'd lose, but they'd come back to see him get his ass kicked again.
Yeah.
But when have you ever seen a Gorgeous George match? Because there are some out there.
I don't feel like I ever have actually.
Because he would have this guy come out and like spray down the ring before he came into the ring and stuff.
Oh, I have seen some of that stuff. I feel
Yeah.
like he had almost like the Rick Martel like atomizer, or he'd be
Yeah,
like
but
spraying the ring. Like
he'd have a guy doing
it
that
was
for
like,
him. Yeah.
yeah,
Or also like well no, Adrian, like Rip Rogers. I think that's why Rip Rogers never got a major push, because Rip Rogers was just annoying as hell. So you could just job him and he'd get it. He'd get
Yeah.
it right back. Okay,
That was what Terry Funk warned Scott Hall about. He said, "You're really good at putting people over. Don't let them see you do that, because then you'll never do anything else."
yeah.
Yeah.
So the last match of the night. So this is not the match where Luger and Windham win the titles. Was this on Pro? That looked like the Pro logo. This is Pro, wasn't it, Matt?
I think so.
So this is just a TV match where Windham and Luger are challenging Arn and Tully for the titles, and it's Jim Ross and Magnum TA on commentary.
Yes.
This might have been, I don't know. This is weirdly timed because Magnum was kind of like they're using him like he was still a wrestler. Especially
You could tell he did not have the mobility for it. And
I mean, this was, I mean, you're talking about like 30 plus years ago. So there may have been 35 years ago. There may have been a hope that he could return, but it's like,
yeah.
if you actually study what happened to him, like the dude like shattered two of his cervical vertebrae. It's like, yeah, like that.
What was a big deal?
Like that's not happening. Like you're not coming back.
It was a big deal because he walked at a show after the accident.
Yeah.
That's a lot different.
Yeah.
I have, without disclosing, like I've dealt with like people who have medical disabilities.
Yeah.
Anytime you deal with like a spinal injury, like that's complicated.
And there's a difference between there is a huge, massive difference that I think people don't understand sometimes of regaining your mobility versus like being able to do athletic stuff. There's a difference between, okay, I got enough back that I can walk around my house, maybe walk to the store holding on to like a shopping cart and like function normally, but that doesn't mean I can ever like play basketball or...
Look, I can't work my heavy bag because I'll throw my shoulder out of socket.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, there's a huge gulf there. But in any event, this tag match, I adored this tag match.
I want to say I really underappreciate the kind of bumper Luger is, because he took a vertical suplex in this. And man, the way he came down and like the thud his body made, I was like, oh man, like he really does not get enough credit for like some of his technical abilities.
He didn't do this because it was so early in his career. He didn't do it like later career. But an endearing quality of Luger that I've come to appreciate as time has gone on. I miss the Luger like exaggerated selling. He just like started yelling when he like take a big bump.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
But I thought Luger was really good at this. This was chronologically, this is a little over a year since like the January '87 debut kind of than when he started that we
And
saw
they
with
get
the.
they get a fucking pop when they come out for this too.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Um,
Like
I like this match a lot.
they botched him so bad by not putting the belt on him in '88.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that they should have strike. They should have struck when the iron was hot. There was so much going on with Jim Crockett
Because this is,
Promotions and
I remember
WCW, NWA, WCW.
Brian and Vinny, like that's where the narrative started to change on him. There was a Brian and Vinny episode years ago where they went off watching WWE about how booking always got cold feet with him, and it was never Luger's fault because Luger always came to the table and did his job, and booking always fucked him over.
That
Because even in this match, it's because if someone wants to say he sucks, no, watch stuff like this because you're watching it and you're like, how did they screw this up? Because he's everything you need. He's doing everything you want him to do here.
So again, the theme of this show and last show was Barry Windham. But
Mhm.
watching this match, I actually wrote in my notes. I keep notes for like the stuff we watch. Like I actually wrote in my notes like this is actually more of a showcase for Luger, and it was, in my opinion. This was a match where Arn and Tully, of course, they're fantastic, but and even Barry, it's like this was more a focus and a showcase for Luger because when Luger had offense, he looked fantastic,
Yeah.
and it was trying to build to like him showcasing him as a talent.
What
Like, and
what's
there was.
funny that you mentioned that is
Mhm.
it reminded me a lot of the Wyndham and Dustin tag because he did a lot of this taking a step back to like Dustin shine when they were tagging.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's a stark contrast to the when he teams with Ron Garvin and it's more about him than Garvin.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Because it's the established veteran teaming up with the younger, well, not rookie, but the younger talent that you're trying to get over. And this was kind of about, to me, I perceived it more as like getting Luger over.
It's getting him
But
there. It feels like you could tell this is a match. It's about revving Luger up. Like they're heating him
yeah,
up for that big program that's going to come in the summer. Like you can tell
yeah,
this is their heat. They're getting him real hot for
yeah.
for bigger stuff.
And to digress away from talking about Barry and to go back to Luger, like I absolutely agree. Like I think I would whoever started Brian and Vinny, but it's accurate that Luger the narrative that Luger was terrible. It's like no, if people still have that narrative, like it's wrong. Like Luger actually was good and had points in his career that he was actually great.
And I've said it before,
He
like with him, is they screwed him over a lot. They screwed Sting over a lot too. But like I feel like the big Luger moments, like where he finally gets the title, where he gets over the hump, like those typically I think landed better than the Sting ones, even though I like Sting better. Like Luger always stuck the landing, and I think
mm,
he didn't quite get screwed by booking as much, even though he got screwed in '91. There was something he always stuck the landing, and like something with Sting always fucking went wrong,
yeah.
and that wasn't necessarily his fault, but like Luger never had that like scuff the landing like Sting did a lot of times, which I'm not blaming
Sting
on Sting. Like something always happened with Sting that kind of
Sting, yeah. Like in the late 80s, early 90s, like Sting, like there was always something that happened that unfortunately affected him. Injuries or just bad booking, whatever.
Yeah.
But Luger did. Luger lived up. Like the course of this show, there's several actually workers that over the course of this podcast or this show, like I have said, or I've learned, it's like, you know what? My perception on this person is wrong. This person was actually really good and doesn't get the credit that they deserve. Thankfully, I think the narrative has changed on Luger.
I think because
That
people
are
started to see the TV and like those big matches and like because you can't watch like anything in '88 or '89 and come away with that thinking he sucks.
no, he was Luger again. Luger was good, at points great. There were points, and this is indicative of a lot of people. So it's not. There were points where his booking wasn't great. So not that he dogged it, but it's like you're not seeing the best output from him. But you're also not giving him the best like opponents that he's really gonna like. Like I can appreciate a guy like the Barbarian, but if you do Luger versus Barbarian, it's like you're not gonna get Luger versus like Flair or Luger
No.
versus
Barbarian's
even like Luger versus Ron Simmons or somebody. Like they'll play to his strengths.
Barbarian is a sneaky good worker though.
Barbarian is actually a better worker than he gets credit for, but you're not gonna. That's
No.
not gonna be like this is a 5-star classic. Lex Luger
No, but
versus Barbarian
that's just not. I think
in
you could get.
1995 or something. But
I think though you could get an interesting Haas fight out of them, but it's not going to be like
Yeah.
you're not going to get technical marvel. You're just going to get some
yeah,
big meaty men slapping meat on each other.
yeah,
I would
that's
say
what I want.
I would say Luger's one that my perspective has changed on a lot, but I think Andre is one that like really.
Oh, this show has definitely changed me on Andre because, unfortunately, by the time I started watching a little before you guys did. I'm a little older than you guys, but
Yeah.
you guys basically started watching the Monday Night War era. I started watching a little bit before that. I was still like a kid, and it was so I didn't watch the stuff contemporaneously. But through like the magic of video stores when those things were a thing that existed. That's how old I am.
Yeah.
I'm dating myself.
Oh, yeah.
Video stores. I watched a lot of like, Coliseum home video stuff. So I saw like a lot of Andre from like basically,
The end.
80s WWF. Which at that point that's the tail end of Andre's career. Like that's washed Andre.
Yeah.
So through this show, we have seen more peak era Andre, and it's like, holy shit, this guy was actually good. Which is a curiosity because a guy his size traditionally is not good.
Because they don't have to be.
Yeah.
They don't have to be. It also like they have actually physiological issues that would prevent them from doing some of the stuff. Like a guy of Andre's size. He could actually do it, but it's like a guy like Andre's size when he was younger, he could. But it's like if you're like 7 foot tall, 300 plus or 300 pounds or whatever, like you should not be able to do kip ups, and other stuff, or be as agile as you were. But he was.
Stupid Don Leo Jonathan and his like being 40 and doing kip ups like he.
Oh
like
yeah,
it's nothing.
yeah. Well, that guy was like that again.
Those
things we've
Mormons
learned.
in their clean living.
Yeah. Well, just in general, like guys like Sting have. I don't know. Like I don't understand.
Sting is a genetic freak.
Look, I'm older. I'm in my 40s now, so I don't know like the various pills. So I'm not saying red pill or black pill or whatever like this shit. It's like Sting has pilled me in the sense that it's like, oh, actually some guys are just like genetic freaks.
Yeah.
Like they could be 60 years old, 60 plus years old, and jump off like high balconies onto their like 40 years younger opponents.
That's why
because they're just genetic freaks.
That's why when I compare Bianca Belair, I compare her to Sting because it's just like she is a genetic freak. That's the reason.
She is a legitimately like phenomenal athlete.
It's why
My favorite.
It's why she's one of the few NXT prospects that worked out because her athleticism covered. Chris Statlander is the same thing. Chris Statlander, well, she can't stay healthy, but like there are times
She's been doing good for a while.
There's times where like
She's been good for a while, yeah.
There's times though where her matches are better than they should be because you'll watch her and it's like, oh, if she was a normal person, that would have been a blown spot, but she is just so freaky strong, she just powered through her mistake.
My favorite example of the genetic freak thing, that whenever I have that conversation with somebody, it's like, okay, look, Danny DeVito was never going to be an Olympic swimmer, right? Like, that just wasn't going to happen. Michael Phelps was like the next best thing to genetically designed in a lab to be an Olympic swimmer.
That's because
they
spliced porpoise DNA in there when he was a child.
Well, yeah, that would make sense because when you pull the shower cap off, then you see how messed up his teeth are. Um,
Even the way Michael Phelps is like shaped when you look at him, it's like, oh, he's like his body is literally shaped to swim well.
yes, and so why the corollary to that is there's some people who are genetically built to be good at stuff. Guess what? There's some people who are genetically built to be great wrestlers. It's just how it is. And so the idea that yes, there's some people that are just Sting, genetic freak. Flair was a genetic freak because he was a cardio machine.
Flair has, you'd hear the stories, and I believe it because you've seen this stuff. It's like Flair would do like hour-long Broadway matches with guys, and then get in a fucking car or hop on a plane
and do it again the same day.
Travel an hour or so, and get to like another town and be like, all right, let's do another like hour-long Broadway, and it's like, that's insane. But you do that routinely.
We just watched it on this episode. Like, he got to the end of that Barry Windham thing, and Barry Windham had a good tank too. Flair wasn't even breathing hard.
Yeah. That the story I remember was, you'd have guys who, like Brian Pillman came out of the NFL and Flair blew him up. You'd have guys go out there and they're doing an hour-long match. They get to 45 minutes and Flair goes, okay, well, let's kick it in. And the other guy's going, now? I got nothing left, dude.
Or I'll tell you who a real genetic freak is Kenny Omega, because I know people that do physical therapy, and when they found out he had vertigo for like years, they're like, I don't know how he did it. Like, I work with people that have vertigo, and it is debilitating.
Look, Kenny Omega is there are like Sting or Flair, they're guys who are genetic freaks, or almost they're essentially generational talents, and that term has kind of like been overplayed. But people who there are not that many people. You don't have 100.
You might go 20 years and not see someone of that caliber.
Yes,
it's
or
like
in a generation, in a decade or two, you may have like one to a handful of them.
Like if you're talking like the 80s, if you're talking like in the 80s and 90s, you had an overabundance of them because you had literally, it was Flair, Savage, Funk, Mizawa, and like Hansen and Choshu.
Yeah,
and
you had a few.
Yeah, and you're talking, that is like, you don't have that now. Like,
no.
Now you probably have like, and like in the aughts, we'll go with the aughts. You had like Joe Styles,
Danielson,
and Omega.
Omega's something special because you have a guy who, because of his horrible diverticulitis, like, which, I mean, if you actually like read up on that story, like it almost sounds like it was developing into sepsis, which will kill you real quick.
Oh yeah.
Like, he was on the shelf after surgery treatment, and then he had to have surgery. All things considered, he was on the shelf for like a year.
Yeah.
13 months. And then came back and had effectively a 5-star performance. And I know that Meltzer kind of has nerfed his own like rating system, but legitimately had, again, another like career level performance against Gabriel Kidd in January after having like 13 months off.
Yeah.
Or like, there you don't have that sort of person come along like that. Like, you can't, a guy was off 13 months, and it's like, imagine it's even like the best in their actual sports fields talent. Like, let's say LeBron is like, I'm gonna take a year off. LeBron takes a year off from like playing a game. He comes back and he does like 100 fucking points.
Yeah.
In a game, or his first game out. It's like, yeah, you're elite level. Kenny Omega is elite level. Yeah, no pun intended.
Or he's not talking. I mean, we know he's a freak too, but Brock Lesnar literally quit wrestling and almost like was one of the last cuts. Almost willed his way onto an NFL roster just by pure. And I mean, like,
and I think it was he didn't get it because he'd come on late.
Yeah,
or something like that.
But he came close. Just on pure athletic talent. in the NFL.
Yeah, I don't know his background. Did he even play like football as a
No,
like
no.
high
I think
school
he might
level?
have played in high school because the thing with the NFL that people don't understand is because they always like, why do these guys in college like wash out when they go to the NFL? I'm like, because literally everyone in the NFL is a freak of nature. Like I know someone that got
Oh yeah.
cut in training camp. This is to give someone an idea of what it's like. He played a skill position in college,
Yeah.
and he got cut in training camp, and he said like I knew I was cooked because they had us running, and he's like I was running as hard as I could, and this 350-pound lineman just comes strolling up next to me and is like, hey, what's up? And I'm trying to run as hard as I can. It's like I knew I was done because like these
Yeah.
like huge motherfuckers are running like
We
as fast as me, and they're not even trying all the way.
I feel we talked about that in the last recently, like the last few weeks of the show. We talked about there was this was on social media actually that happened. Like a guy who I feel like he was college level, like it's this story, like collegiate level. He like was somewhere doing something, and it's like he challenged like he's like, oh, let's do like some drills or something in like football. And it turns out that the guys he was challenging were actually like NFL.
Yeah.
And this is a guy who's like college level.
Yeah.
Okay. Which, not saying that's a be all end all, but on the average person, like a college level, I
Yeah.
can play it. I can play at the college level. Like you are probably like many steps above an average
Oh, yeah.
person.
Yeah.
And this person got mowed. Like not
Yeah.
even a contest. By
For-
guys who afterwards it's like, oh my god, like I can't believe he did this. Like it's like, oh yeah, we play for like the NFL, and they weren't even like, oh, I'm like the top guy in the NFL.
Yeah.
It was just like I play like even like a second stringer. Like I'm benched most of the game on the NFL. They're on a different level
Yeah.
against a guy who already is probably like several steps above the average person. Like
I read a, I
this
read a,
person's here, this person's this. It's a different level.
yeah, I read a
Kenny
story
Omega
once.
is on that air. Is on
That's
that
true.
level. Kenny Omega is elite,
I read
possibly greatest of all time.
if you read like beer league stories for hockey, like I've read a number of times for like, oh yeah, this guy was like in his early 50s and played like one NHL game, and we were like in our physical primes, and he fucking smoked us, all of us,
Yeah.
like single-handedly.
In America, if you go, everybody who's played organized sports, the percentage of them that make the pro level, like, because you organized sports, so you played in school all up to college, yada, 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 all that. The percentage of people that make the pro level is 1%. That's it.
And
Like
most of them-
1%.
And most of them last 2 seasons, especially in the NFL.
I'm just saying, that's in general. That's all sports. 1% make it to the pro level. And that's just making it to the pro level. That's, like you said, that's not, I'm starting on the line, or, I'm the sixth man for an NBA team.
Like I'm a
or,
professional. I'm the professional like hot dog eater on the end of the bench.
Well, even the people who are sitting on the end of the bench have to be good enough to be able to be put in the game and be relied on.
Well, that's what I'm
So-
saying. Like the guy that is the professional hot dog eater on the very end of the bench, you go drop him in like a situation, we'll say with Division I athletes, he is going to crush like 99% of the guys on that field and be an absolutely devastating force of
Yeah.
nature.
Because there's a certain mix of talent, ability, and athletic prowess that when you put it together, you've got it. And there are, we've been talking about some of them tonight. We said Flair, we said Sting. Honestly, I would say Luger too, because the booking let Luger down.
Well, Luger, I mean, just from a body perspective, is like a freak. Like, because like we
Even if
talked
he
about
wasn't
that.
the most work ratey guy, not everybody needs to be the most work ratey guy.
We were talking about that with steroids, though. Is like they asked Waltman once if he did steroids. He was like, "Oh yeah, I tried them. Didn't do a damn thing for me." Like where there's that, like steroids are a shortcut, but you still have to like you still have to have the frame and the genetics to be able to sculpt the body properly and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate reality is that there is a genetic component to this, and sometimes you have to hit the genetic lottery.
Yeah.
So
Like, if I've pondered this myself sometimes. If I decided to go after it and put in the work and really put myself out there and sacrifice a lot that I didn't want to say, could I have like been somebody in the wrestling business? Maybe. And I'm coming from a place of I had decent height for it. I had an athletic background for it. Um, fan of it, so I wanted to do it, that sort of stuff. And even with that, to get to that high level, it's like, where would I be at? If I was doing a good job and had a good break, I don't know. I might be like JD Drake in Ring of Honor level.
You might have. I was gonna say you might be doing like some spots with the NWA, which isn't saying that's not saying anything bad. That's like, oh, you got on TV in front of an audience,
right? But that's what I'm saying is like it would not shock me for me to be like, that's where my ceiling was, is to be like a lower Carter for Ring of Honor right now or something.
And like, I mean. And to go with your point, like you said, the most talented guy you probably ever worked with, one of the most talented guys was Larry D. And I think the height of his career was like murdering what's his face in Impact. Who'd he shoot at the Halloween thing? He ended up being the shooter and like wrestled Tommy Dreamer.
I can't remember.
But like that's what I'm saying. Like, so that's probably, I don't know, like you probably would have a list, but that's probably like one of the top 3 like most talented wrestlers you ever faced, and like he got to a national promotion as a mid-carder.
Yeah, and I can't argue with that. Like,
and there's some people, and I mean like there's some people that might poo-poo that, and it's like,
he made it on TV. Like, what do you? Okay, top 3 that I'll give you was Larry D, Ronnie Roberts, who was frankly a really big deal on OVW television, and then John Noble, who his height was at a time where, man, it just if John Noble's height was now, I think he would be somewhere. But he was not tall, but he was built out good, and he could work, and he was smart, and he was funny, and that sort of stuff. So, like, if his prime was now, yes, I absolutely would see him somewhere. But at the time, the only show in town was WWE, and what happens when he had his tryout? They couldn't. Their only the reason they gave him was, well, you're too short to be too small to be a heavyweight, but you don't fly like a high flyer, so we can't use you. And it's like, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
That's 100% bullshit.
But like, if I had a wrestling career and like my height was, I got my ass kicked on Collision in like 2 minutes and someone wanted to mock me for that, I'm like, I got on national TV, motherfucker. Like in front of in front of a crowd of a couple thousand people and probably like a couple 100,000 people watching. That's better than what a lot of guys ever get.
Brad, you remember the same event we met Bobby Fulton at? You remember a dude that was there that went by the name Lord Crew?
Oh yeah, he's jobbed on every AEW show I've gone to, because he's a local guy here.
He's North Kentucky.
He works in Columbus a lot, but he always does jobs when they come to Columbus.
Yeah. And Lord Crew is like 6'7", 6'8". I felt short next to him. Like, he's a tall dude.
But but I mean, I don't know. Like if someone was like, "Oh, the best you ever did was job for a national promotion," like, yeah, how many guys get to say that? Yeah,
I was on the national promotion. The only people I feel bad about that, and it's the K. Trevor Wilson bit of the guy who already in the ring, Scott, and then gets murdered in 3 minutes, and it's like, okay, I feel a little bad for you there because it's like, or what happened when they fed Nicole Matthews to Jade, and it's just like, oh, don't do that shit.
It's also like,
But
yeah, like I got beat up on TV, but it's like, you know what? Like I made more money for that 2 minutes of work than I probably made in like 4 or 5 months of like independent wrestling shows.
it's like, by the way, I was on TV,
Yeah. It's like I probably made $500+ for that 2 minutes of work, like boohoo.
I watched Lord Crew get murdered by the Death Riders at the last show I was at.
Yeah, he does all the Columbus ones too. Like he does a lot of jobs for them.
Yeah.
And I think like I want to say the other one because it is a match that would also be on my short list for favorite matches of all time now that I'm thinking about it. But Hacksaw Jim Duggan is someone I turned you guys around on because his taped fist match with Ted DiBiase would be on my short list for favorite matches of all time.
I don't know that I've had favor for all time for him, but it was really refreshing to see. I had known there was more out there. I just hadn't ever gotten around to watching it. And to see more of Jim Duggan than just flagging in 2x4, it's like, okay, like I understand what got him to that particular company now. Like this makes sense to me. And even his late 90s WCW stuff, he was doing a good job in.
I also liked his, like, the Mid-South stuff, though, where he was kind of just a dumb caveman, but it was like, yeah, I'm dumb, but I'll just punch my way out of any trouble I get into because I can do that.
Yeah.
But so, I think, so it is March, so I think is it Mania 40 this year?
41.
Okay. So we're going to do a little bit of Mania content this year. I don't know which weeks we're going to do it, but we're going to kind of do like I thought it'd be fun to do 2 watches. We're going to do WrestleMania 14 and then WrestleMania 17 because I thought it'd be kind of fun to do like the bookends of the Attitude Era. Plus they're good. They're actually watchable Manias. So I thought we'd do that. And
helps.
I thought we might throw in some other like random Mania content in there just for Mania month.
Well, then we'll see what we can get put together.
Yeah.
Did you before we wrap up? Did you guys see like he deleted it? But did you see like what the tweet that Dave Meltzer put out?
No.
If it's true, obviously I take it with a grain of salt. But if you actually believe that it's true, Dave tweeted a tweet that he then deleted that some people are up in arms about, but he basically said that Rock, because again I said earlier in the show, like thank Rock for making WrestleMania kind of compelling with Cena turning heel against Cody. Rock actually wanted it wasn't supposed to be Cena versus Cody. It was Rock wanted to actually work Cody.
Okay.
And what's funny is that Triple H, Paul, didn't want that. And according to Dave Meltzer, Rock, because he has way more fucking power than Triple H, Rock was like, fuck you, I'm going to do what I want. And Nick Khan was like, yeah, we're gonna go with what Rock wants, and so Triple H got cucked by that. But Cody got convinced, where he's like, no, I'd rather not do like Rock versus Cody. I'd rather not do like against Rock. So Rock was like, okay, I'll respect that. So Cena was the backup plan, and Cena was like, yeah, I'm good. Like, let's do Cena versus like Cody. So basically,
oh my God.
If you believe Meltzer, again, it could be not true, but Meltzer in his deleted tweet says, this is true because someone I know personally like said this is like what's going on behind the scenes. It was supposed to be Rock versus Cody, which would make sense given the whole like Rock being like, I own your soul, Cody. I want your soul.
Yeah.
Like, it would make sense. So Cody was like, for whatever reason, Cody was it was makes sense. Like Cody was convinced, probably by Triple H. It's like, no, don't do that. Cody was like, I don't want to do that. So Rock was like, okay, I respect you. Like, no, I won't do that. And Rock can like come back next year and do Rock versus Roman or Rock versus Cody, whatever.
Yeah.
But allegedly, if this is true, grain of salt, but I think it's true. Like, Rock basically like fucked over Triple H.
Well, there's
like,
one of the
And then
reasons.
turned around and said to Cody, I respect that.
It's either gonna be me and you. And Cody was like, I kind of don't want to do it. Rock was like, oh, okay, yeah. How about about Cody and Cena? It's like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll do that.
There was a recent flagship episode where Joe Lanza was kind of going over his shenanigans the last 2 years and was theorizing that he intentionally does this to screw Triple H's booking up because he doesn't like Triple H. Like that needs to be said.
Yeah.
And
but at the same time, again, people should thank Rock because he made WrestleMania actually interesting. Because this angle is the only interesting thing about Mania. Cody versus Cena is the only, in my opinion. I've seen the proposed card for WrestleMania. Cody versus Cena is the only thing that seems interesting. Everything else is just like, this is boring. I don't care about this.
yeah,
I don't care about Jey Uso versus Gunther.
no,
I don't care about
they kind
CM
of
Punk versus Roman or Seth Rollins. Like, I don't care about any of this shit.
and I do think it's funny that CM Punk was having to cope about, oh, well, I don't care that much that I got bumped from, I might get bumped from the main event, which I would find hilarious. But, like, I think the problem with Jay and Gunther is, like, it's been done to death. Like, I feel like
It's already been done.
Yeah. It's a return match, and it's like...
And, like, I wish they would stop... I wish they would stop inserting stuff into Seth into stuff where he gets exposed as not being that good, because they did it again this year.
I understand that he's a company man and he toes the line and everything, but it's like, you know, sooner or later he's going to get sick of this, right?
Well, I mean, I've said it before because people get really on their high horse when like top stars are selfish. And it's like, well, no, you do have to be selfish to a degree because you have to protect yourself.
Yeah.
And like when they get upset, like when Goldberg would like nix things when he was there, or like when Cena nixes things, or even like, you know, when they go back and like, well, Hogan did this. I'm like, yeah, because you're the top guy. You have to protect yourself because they'll you know, you have to put your foot down sometimes and say, no, this little funny haha thing you're going to do is going to like chip away at my credibility or my drawing power. Because I'll use a great example of where they fucked someone over and she's never recovered. When they did that dumbass thing where at SummerSlam, Becky came back and beat Bianca Belair in like 5 seconds for the title. Like, Bianca is
stupid.
Still over, but that's what I said at the time. Like, she's never gotten back to what she was because of that.
That was so stupid.
Like, she's still over, and people will be like, well, she's still over. It's like, yes, but she's like 90% of what she was.
Yeah.
And she had to rebuild from that happening.
Yeah, it's like there are certain things you never quite recover from. And that's one of the things that WWE does a lot. Like, they want these moments, and they do these moments, and they don't think about like the long-term ramifications of like when you absolutely just bury someone for the moment, and then you have to deal with like 6 months down the line. It's like, well, why aren't they as over as they were? Like, well, like, I think that's a big issue they have.
Yeah.
Well, I think that is it for this week. Is there anything else you guys want to mention before we call it a night?
I do want to mention one thing real quick. I guess with the Barry Bobby Fulton match and also the Arn and Tully Barry Luger tag match. Just as an aside, people who claim and I will die on this hill. People who claim that the peak of Jim Ross was the Monday Night Wars Attitude Era of WWF, WWE. No, it was late '80s to a little bit early '90s. Jim Crockett Promotions in WA, WCW. Like that was the peak because Jim Ross in both of these like matches, like to me, adds so much by his excitement, his enthusiasm, and his like good actual play-by-play stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like this was like peak Jim Ross.
I would
Like,
say
by Attitude Era, like Attitude Era, Monday Night Wars era, Jim Ross, like he was actually past his prime. And I will die on that hill. I know he's still employed by AEW. He's still like, but that was his peak. 30 years ago was his peak.
My disagreement with you is I think 86 UWF Jim Ross is his peak, and he's still really.
Fair.
I would say like 85 to 94, but like for me, peak Jim Ross is 86 UWF, and his best commentary partner of all time is Michael Hayes.
I haven't heard enough of Michael Hayes to gauge that.
He's good with a lot of people, though. I think he's really good with Hayes. He's really good with Jim Cornette. The bits he does with Heyman. I have a fondness for him with Jim Ross, but like it's not my favorite. But there's just something special about him and Hayes. Like their dynamic's really good because Hayes is an obnoxious ass and really lets him kind of. It's an underrated thing, like those dry quips that Jim Ross gets in on people.
Yeah.
But I don't think I've ever heard anyone with Ross that's terrible. When him and Tony are doing it, it's a little weird, but it's two play-by-play guys.
Yeah.
Him and Cottle's a little weird, too.
Two play-by-play is a hard dynamic because you got two people trying to do the same job.
Yeah, but like I'd say 86 is peak Ross for me, but like I don't think late 80s, early 90s Ross is still like amazing. Anything pre-Bell's palsy with him is good.
Yeah.
But he's too much of a caricature in the Attitude Era. Like he yells too much.
Everything was a caricature in the Attitude Era.
And like Lawler, like peak Lawler commentary is the 80s too. Like Lawler is funny as hell when he's in Memphis and he's cracking his like one-liners and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Lawler he's too smart for what he was doing during the Attitude Era.
He was being fed lines. You can see it in Beyond the Mat. Vince is specifically feeding him lines. And it's like, all right,
yes,
fine.
But at the same time, it's also like, you're smart. I know you're smart because I've seen enough stuff where you were actually creative and intelligent.
He's a nerd.
Yeah, fast forward like years later, and it's like, you're just like, Puppy, and it's like, that's not you. Like, I know that's not you.
No, he's a nerd.
Maybe it's you because you're told like, oh, just play up that, but it's like unfortunately that's what you're probably going to be remembered best about, like your commentary versus like the long, storied, amazing career you had as a worker. But
like
I guess that's business.
Like with the Legends of Wrestling card game, they're talking something about people have been wanting to get him for years, and I was like, yeah, if you ever meet him, don't take the Legends game, take the sci-fi game. He's gonna react a lot better to the aliens and stuff because that's the funny thing is if you hear about when they came up with like the Kamala gimmick, he was talking about like old like pulp magazines and stuff, and when you hear him talk about a lot of stuff, he talks about a lot of science fiction and fantasy and all of that stuff because he's just a nerd. I totally lost my train of thought there. Oh, Jim Ross being peak. Yeah, I think he's really good though. Like I would say he's probably like still number one like overall. Well, he's number one or number two. Like it's him, like Lance Russell and Tony Schiavone are like my Mount Rushmore of play-by-play guys. Then it's probably like Gorilla and I don't know who'd be after Gorilla.
Look, I know it might be a recency bias thing, but I actually enjoy Excalibur as a play-by-play because, by and large, he is very neutral and straight up does the job. So it's like, I appreciate that.
I like Excalibur a lot. I've said it on the show numerous times. I think Shad shudders every time I say it. But my main complaint with Excalibur is like when a match is really heating up, sometimes I wish he would stop saying like the uber technical terms for names and just kind of get lost a bit in the match. Like that's my only complaint with him. Like sometimes like if it's like a hot moment, I don't need to know like, oh, that was the uber like Blue Thunder fuckinator. Like I don't like sometimes you can kind of like sometimes you need to be like, oh, I'm not going to say that because I'm into the match. Like so I'm kind of
That's Excalibur's thing, though. So
I know
you're asking him to ditch like his shtick. So
I'm just saying that's my one complaint. I wish he would alter a bit. I think he's good with Taz though. Like that was the best part about Dark back in the day is like it would be like this hour of just like these boring squashes and it'd be him and Taz trying to pop themselves. Eddie Kingston's underrated too because Eddie Kingston will like just throw some like weird references out. Like there was one they were doing something like, well, as Gordon Soley would call it, that's a souffle.
Souffle, yeah.
And he was also the commentator for the debut of Dragon.
And
so
just based on the commentary when he was doing, like Big Show seems to love Kingston.
Yeah.
Oh, I love Kingston.
Oh, yeah. And there was, I think it was Kira Hogan, like she came out for a match and Kingston was like pretty much talking around it, but he's like, I don't like her because she's too ghetto, is like what he was kind of saying on commentary. Okay, but I will say that is it for this week. Thank you everyone for joining us as always, and we will catch you next time.